Suspected my roommate, 35 male, was going into my, 30 female, room. And he was, to steal my effing panties. So the suspicion started because about a month ago, he texted me at night asking if the upstairs neighbors were being loud in my room. And I texted back, no, I'm at a friend's house tonight, I won't be back until 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. tomorrow. I left said friends early the next morning, went into my room, and effed around on my computer. Dude just effing opened the door and tried to walk in at 7:30 a.m. Excuse me? Very aggressively, I said, and he came back with two conflicting statements when pressed. Sorry, I thought I knocked. Which, F you, I didn't effing open the door or invite you in, so what the F? Followed by, I thought it was my room. Which, why the hell would you knock to go into your own room? We're also on opposite sides of the hallway? It made me feel weird, and I told my boyfriend about it, who brought me a Casa webcam. The very next day, following installation, this guy goes into my effing room while I'm at therapy, and it's to pet my cats. Alright, that's a little weird that you didn't ask beforehand, but that's okay. It's like 1.5 out of 10 on the creepy scale compared to what I thought was happening. My cats cannot leave my room, as my other roommate, 60 male, has a cat with free reign of the apartment, and his cat F's my cat up, so they're unfortunately confined to my room. You can come into my room to pet my cats. That's fine, I guess. Why not just say that when you tried the other day then? Nothing happens for weeks until yesterday. Yesterday was a fairly light day, and I didn't even have to go to campus, so I just got to the gym. While I'm at the gym, I get an activity detected notification. Since the last time I saw him in my room to pet my cats, every activity detected notification has just been one of the furballs on my desk. Nope, it's him entering my room, not even looking all the way around before he sticks his hands into my effing hamper and digs around for a minute. Then he immediately goes to my clean underwear drawer, and when he's done there, effing beelines it for my nightstand where I keep my very expensive lingerie as well as all of my sex toys. He very clearly knows where all of my things are. I'm watching this live at the gym, and I'm effing livid. After he leaves my room, I rewatched the clips and noticed he put something back into my hamper on entry. He enters the room with something, folded fabric, in his hands and goes for my hamper, and then when he's done in the hamper, there is nothing in his hands anymore. So he's just been borrowing and or stealing my clothes. Underwear. I text him both on Discord and in our roommate chat. No one is permitted in my room when I'm not there, and especially not to raid my effing used clothing, panty drawer, or sex drawer. He just says sorry, and then immediately leaves the group chat, and then spams me on Discord and text messages. I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me, it won't happen again, I have a problem, you know I'm dumb. I got caught, I think this is what I should say. Bullshit. I just told him, don't effing speak to me, and only text me about bills. Unfortunately, I don't have parents. My boyfriend lives with his parents who would not be down with me living there, and none of my friends have a place that I can stay. I am stuck here. I'm also fixed income because grad school, so even if I could afford the monthly, deposits and such wouldn't be covered. And it took me 3 months to find this place, which was the first and only to let me keep both cats. I already bought and installed a lock, despite my apartment complex saying I can't have a lock on my door, but F them. My safety comes first. However, I can't help but feel disgusted about my things being touched. After I got back from the gym yesterday, I threw on a bathrobe and never got dressed again. Today, when I woke up and thought that I'd go to the gym early, I paused in my underwear drawer and just couldn't bring myself to put any on. This guy already owes me $400, but I don't even want to wear anything in my underwear drawer, not knowing what pair has been used by him. My friends say that I should go through and catalog, as well as sterilize, all of my things. I just want everything replaced, but considering the cost of some of these things, one of my bras is $600, they think it's unreasonable to ask. I also want to go file a police report, but I don't even know what it would be for. Trespassing? The second I press charges, I'm out a roommate, and his room is an effing neckbeard nest that I'm not going to clean. I don't even know what to do here. I'm still livid, and I still feel pretty effing unsafe with a lock on the door. Is there anything else that I can and should do? Update, same post, same day. The rest of the footage hadn't loaded. Apparently he was jerking off after he went to the panty drawer with my effing lube. Goddamn degenerate. I'm currently calling non-emergency to see what actions can be taken and how long I can sit on this, since moving or replacing him as a roommate isn't an option. Edit, the bra was purchased when I was working, over 3 years ago, and making $120,000 a year. I've saved a majority of my earnings so that I could return to school for my master's, which I paid for and completed in 2 years, and now I'm going for my PhD, living off of savings and extremely lean research stipends. What purchases I made 3 years ago isn't effing relevant. Please stop saying that I have a spending prioritization issue when clearly it's a reading comprehension issue from some of you. In the comments, someone says to OP, talk to your landlord. And OP says, I don't have a landlord. I have a property management company that refuses to do any sort of work. They wouldn't evict the tenants above me when I have them on video threatening to push me down the stairs. Another video of them threatening another tenant when they talked to their kid, or leaving half-eaten food on the stairs nearly daily, despite the fact that this building has a well-established roach problem. I have to wait 3 weeks for a washer to be replaced and refuse to pay rent for the month that it was broken, which I was shocked they had the sense to not fight me on. My landlord isn't a person. My landlord is a corporation who cannot even be bothered to pay front office staff to be here on weekends. More than likely, I'll pick up a 6-month tenancy somewhere, and my boyfriend will help me with deposit costs if need be. I'm going to look at 2 places today and go over some finances to see what makes the most sense. Why can't you just get him evicted? OP says, because I'm fixed income, and my other roommate is also fixed income. Neither of us can afford an extra $700 to $1,000 a month until we find someone else. I could do it for a month, maybe 2, but he absolutely couldn't, and I could not foot the bill to pay $2,000 a month in just rent, utilities, and internet. It isn't a little extra. Removing the third roommate would likely be 2.5 times what I'm paying now if we can't find someone to immediately replace him. Press charges. OP says, oh, I'm pressing charges either way. I already sent him one 5-second clip of him effing jerking it in my room when he said he wasn't doing anything in my room the first time. If I can get out of the lease first before him, I would rather do that. Both of their rooms are effing disgusting, cannot walk past them without holding my breath, and I do not want to be on the lease whenever it ends because I just know I will be on the hook for replacing the carpeting or any other smell that they're just unable to remove. When I moved in, they closed both of their doors and put out air fresheners. They cleaned. 5 days after I signed my lease and was officially moved in, they started leaving their doors open, and ever since, it's just been a nasal nightmare. I'll ask them to do something about it, things will be fine for a month, and then it's back to square one. I'm tired of it, so I might as well take this sign or opportunity to get the hell out. Make sure to not send the video to others, as that could be a crime. OP says, no, I haven't sent it to anyone other than him. I've physically shown part of the footage, him entering the room, to the leasing office, as well as him hiking up his shorts after spamming him to get the F out of my room. But everything in between is for me and the PD to figure out. The type of bra, and one more note from OP since some comments ridicule her for her spending. OP says, yep, Bordel, Studio Pia, and AP are expensive. I've been advised by non-emergency to not sanitize, in case I need any of these things for evidence, and also if they can be submitted under damages for my renter's insurance to cover them. Effing thank you. These pieces were bought when I was miserable, but being paid north of 6 figures. My return for my MFA was decided after 3 years in an industry that I hated, and buying nice things for myself as an occasional treat for putting up with my industry 3 years ago is not the effing point of this post, nor relevant. It was relevant to the story because I asked my friends if he should pay for these things to be replaced, and they said yes until I told them how much some of my more expensive lingerie costs, and then they said, well, maybe don't ask for him to pay for all of it just because you have expensive taste. And I thought that was insane. I saved money for 3 years so that I could do this. I have emergencies budgeted into my living expenses for the next 3 years of schooling, but I feel I shouldn't have to qualify replacement clothing for stuff my roommate jerked off to as an emergency. It should either be covered by him or insurance, as it is clearly damaged. One more thought from OP. I leave my pepper spray literally on the same nightstand he violated next to my nightstick, and my underwear drawer has literally my handgun case on top of it, in plain view. You cannot miss it. And he knows it's a gun because I told him I started carrying when our shitbag upstairs neighbors moved in. It does not matter to the guy. Update. Hello all. I am indeed alive and out of that shitty apartment. I didn't want to provide an update until I knew the full outcome of the story, and it unfortunately took just under an hour ago to get that. After a week and a half of playing phone tag to file a police report, and then sitting in a police substation for 7 hours to file a report, he was eventually arrested for criminal trespassing, which is a felony charge in my state. This was in April. He, or the prosecutor, were able to shove back pre-trial hearings until today, nearly into November. Today, he pled guilty to criminal trespassing and will have 12 months of probation. Since it's a felony, he will also lose his guns. I was able to be released from the lease since the judge who saw him the morning after his arrest issued a notice to vacate under the explicit supervision of law enforcement. Since I was involved in the order, I was given the option to break the lease without penalty, which I enthusiastically agreed to. I paid my other roommate utilities startup fees. Internet and power were in douchebag's name, and utilities for the next 3 months before I left, since he had to backfill 2 roommates. I also cleaned my own room and douchebag's room before I left. He was stealing all sorts of shit from me and my other roommate, mostly food that we never gave him permission to eat, despite him literally only ever door-dashing food and making more money than me and other roommate combined. Fun fact for those of you who are wondering, didn't he jerk off with your stuff? Isn't that sexual assault? Why is there a trespassing charge instead of something sex crime related? It turns out, at least where I live, that for sex crimes there has to be a victim. Since I was never present in the room when he committed those acts, and there was no DNA evidence left on any of my things, there was technically no victim, which means no sex crime. I could have pushed for that charge, but the chances of that sticking were nothing. Since douchebag never posted the room I was renting on Craigslist, and only posted it on a website where you had to upload a face pic to even be a user, I wanted to make sure whatever he was arrested for stuck, so that no other woman ever had to have her stuff violated again. I completely forgot about that whole website thing until the prosecutor's office called me and they asked me how I even found the room in the first place. Were there any other signs? What about my last roommate, etc., when they were building the case against him? The only man that I will now room with is my partner. In the comments, Blazar Quasar says, I was hoping to find out if the disgusting POS had to pay for her stuff or not, but I'm glad she's out. That's effing gross. F that guy. I'm disappointed that even her friends blamed her for having expensive stuff. It doesn't matter if you have something expensive, someone else violated it or ruined it, they have to replace it. Yeah, like her expensive taste in lingerie meant that it was acceptable on some level. He can pay to replace the cheap stuff, but what did you expect with expensive lingerie like that? Kind of vibes. Gross. Him ruining her expensive lingerie should have made them more sympathetic, not less. What a terrible day to have eyes. How astonishing that the guy couldn't be charged for being such a disgusting pervert. Today would have been a good day to be Jared, 19. OP's ex-roommate is a menace for sure. Well, I'll be. A story that might actually be true, at least based on the legal situation. After a week and a half of playing phone tag to file a police report, and then sitting in a police substation for 7 hours to file a report, he was eventually arrested for criminal trespassing. This was in April. You mean you didn't call your attorney within 20 minutes of finding out he was in your underwear drawer, and he wasn't arrested and convicted within 24 hours? The hell, you say? When I was in college, I caught my roommate in my bedroom with my underwear around him on my bed. I was the only one on the lease, so I kicked him out. This was well before any kind of small camera could be used. He, of course, told all of our mutual friends that I was just crazy, and he got away with it because I didn't want to tell them the truth. It seemed too awful to tell everyone what had happened, so I let them think that I was just some crazy woman who kicked him out of nowhere. Most of them know the truth today, though. Effing perverts. And yeah, I tend to agree with some of those previous comments here. What the hell is with the victim blaming from the friends? He also makes more than you and the other roommate combined in income. Just tell your friends that and be like, he can easily afford to pay for new lingerie for me. Why is it that when you have expensive taste, all of a sudden people are not on your side, even though you've been horrendously violated? What kind of logic is that from the friends? Honestly, OP, I am so glad that you got justice in this situation, and I hope that pig has the life he deserves. Because, Christ, what an animal. Am I the asshole for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? So a little backstory. When my sisters and I were kids, every year for our birthdays and Christmas, my uncle would give us cards. Inside of those cards would be a printed out picture of some place, i.e. local theme parks, the zoo, aquarium, museums, any place that a kid would love to go. After we opened them, he would tell us that we're going to that place. He would say things like, "It's going to be the best trip of your life." That would obviously make us very excited. Here's the thing, we never went on any of those trips. We never went to any of those places. As a young kid, it would be disappointing, but after a while, I started expecting it and just going along with it. I don't hold any animosity towards him at all, obviously. As an adult now, I understand he did that because he didn't have the means to buy us gifts. Here is where I'm starting to have a little bit of an issue with it. My daughter's 5th birthday was last week. My uncle gave her a card, she opened it to find a printed out picture of a theme park about 2 hours away from our house, and he promised her a fun weekend away. He promised her things like a giant hotel room with a swimming pool, all the snacks she could ever want, and tickets to every show she wants to see at the park. She was over the moon. For the past week, my daughter has talked non-stop about this trip. She keeps telling me how excited she is, and how excited her whole class at school is for her. It breaks my heart to look at that smile on her face, knowing that it's not going to happen. I remember how disappointing it was for me, and I don't want her to go through that. So I texted my uncle, and here is what the message said. "Hi, your message in my daughter's card was so beautiful. Do you think next time you could leave out the promise of an extravagant trip? The thought and gesture is amazing. However, I never know what to say when she asks me when this trip will be. She absolutely loves spending time with you, so I know the promise of even a nice lunch together would make her so happy." He never responded, but my aunt told me he was upset. She said something like he was offended that I implied the only thing he could afford was a nice lunch. I didn't mean it like that at all. I just wanted him to understand that she loves him and wants to spend time with him, and he doesn't need to promise impossible things for that to happen. But I can see why he interpreted it the way he did. And that's where I'm wondering if I'm the asshole. This has been an unspoken thing in my family for so many years, so I'm now wondering if I should have just kept it that way. I just can't stand the thought of my little girl getting disappointed so many times. My sisters and my mum agree with me. My mum even said that she wished she stopped it when we were kids. So am I the asshole for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? I'm gonna go with not the asshole for this one, OP, and I think that you didn't go hard enough here. This guy has no remorse, absolutely leading you and now your daughter astray when it comes to these insane promises of lavish trips. Before he had any chance to give her the gift for that holiday, you should have stepped in and been like, "Cut the shit, this isn't happening." You're giving her a normal birthday present. You're not giving her this absolutely insane birthday card with unworldly promises that are going to send her into a spin and that are going to embarrass her and make her question her reality. You've already done this to me. You are not continuing this generational trauma. He's a gigantic piece of shit continuing to do this. But yeah, what else is there to say besides not the asshole? In the comments, not the asshole. It is an incredibly cruel thing to lie to a young child like that. There is zero need for it. Don't be like that. Of course there is a need for it. It makes the uncle feel better. Sarcasm. It makes the uncle feel rich and generous, and it only costs a couple bucks. If he doesn't follow through, intercept any cards coming from this jerk. Not the asshole. But why are you being sensitive to his feelings when he wasn't sensitive to yours when you were a child? Tell him that his actions caused you repeated disappointment when he didn't follow through on his promises, and that you don't want your child to experience the same. IOUs are not presents. As you say, a lunch or an activity on the day would be lovely, but other than that, stick to an actual gift or give nothing at all. This too, I would tell him to get lost, and the aunt to her face, Well, you obviously can't pay for the trip since I have X amount of trips that I still am waiting to go on. I would add in the small, yet significant detail that the daughter told all of her classmates about the trip. Ask the uncle how he thinks she'll feel when she has to keep saying she isn't going yet. Her classmates will think that she made it all up to get attention. Not the asshole. It's slightly underhanded, but start checking the cards from uncle. Take out the trip picture and just give the card to daughter. Not the asshole. Stop being nice because he is not being nice. He knowingly is getting a child's hopes up and then crushing it. There isn't one nice thing about what he's doing. Tell him he's no longer allowed to give gifts because he's a known liar and that all attempts will be intercepted by you. It's worse than that. He keeps getting them excited for him. He basks in that excitement and then goes home, leaving the parents to deal with the fallout. This, right here, explain to aunt that you were left dealing with the fallout and he is only creating disappointment. If he promises something year after year and doesn't ever deliver, he is the asshole here. Aunt and uncle don't see the problem because they're creating it and then walking away. It needs to stop. Update. Thanks to everyone for your feedback on my last post. A lot of people asked me why I was being so nice to my uncle, and honestly, I think I underestimated how weird it was because it's been so normalized in my family. I didn't want to cause drama, so I went about it as non-confrontational as possible. I agree now I should have been more direct. Another concern a lot of you had was that I allowed this to happen to my daughter previously. That is not true. This is the first time he promised her one of his trips. That's why I decided to say something so this doesn't become a recurring thing. Here's the update. I tried to call my uncle twice, but he didn't answer. I got through to my aunt and explained everything to her, how many times he did this to my siblings and I, and how often we were disappointed. I told her my daughter was so excited, and if they were actually planning to take her on this trip, I would apologize. She didn't take that well. She told me that I was creating unnecessary drama and that my daughter and I are acting entitled to expect them to drop everything to go on this trip. I was shocked and angry. I said, how dare you say that? She didn't imagine this trip in her mind and then expect you to take her. You promised her this trip. Her disappointment is not entitlement. I said it's not my job to make sure a grown man feels secure in himself, and it's a shame my family spent so long coddling him. I was just so mad that I hung up. I don't feel any ounce of guilt for setting my boundary anymore. For everyone asking if I can take my daughter on the trip, unfortunately that theme park closes for the season this month, but I surprised her with something even better. After the phone call with my aunt, my partner and I decided to book a trip to Disneyland. It sounds crazy and impulsive, but we've been wanting to plan this for a while now and decided that it's the perfect time. My kid is entitled to an extravagant trip. Last night, we sat her down and explained that her uncle won't be able to take her on the trip. I tried to be as honest as possible without confusing her. She was unsurprisingly upset and had a lot of questions. After we answered them all, I told her not to worry because her mum and dad are taking her somewhere instead. When she found out that it was Disney, she was over the moon. She spent all day deciding which Minnie Mouse stuffy she wants to take with her. I told her to tell her class that her trip just got upgraded. All things considered, it's a happy ending. I know I won't always be able to protect her from disappointment, but I sure as hell will do my best. She's getting that giant hotel room she was promised. In the comments, Ivy Lass says, "Your aunt is a piece of work. We promised your daughter a trip, but you're entitled because you expect us to follow through on that trip. Have fun at Disney." No kidding. The belief that you can play with a child's emotions to stoke your own ego? I mean, it sounds like they've been getting away with it for the past couple of decades without anyone calling them on it. The aunt and uncle are obviously the worst assholes in this scenario, but the rest of the family gets dishonorable mentions for enabling this behavior at the expense of children. If we're being honest, the uncle is not only the asshole, but he's a pathological liar who delights in hurting children. He's a sick puppy. But what makes it even worse is that his behavior has been enabled for years. Imagine how crushed OP was as a child to be promised trips that never happened. If it were me, he would never be invited to another gathering. It's not a joke. It is not funny, it is not cute, it is intentionally cruel. That family dynamic is just wild. Why has everyone just accepted that Uncle exclusively gifts crushed dreams and disappointment to all the kids in the family? How and why did it take so long for someone to push back? I don't exactly understand how this works, but alas, this family is not alone. Unless OP is one of my in-laws, I guess. My husband comes from a family like this, where the promise of something and the happiness and excitement it inspires is regarded as a gift somehow completely separate from the thing itself. I'm not saying anyone believes this consciously, but multiple members of his family feel the joy of giving so much just by making the promise that they promise things apparently without considering how or whether they will deliver. My hat is off to OP, because I know from watching my husband that this pattern is disturbingly easy for children to absorb and then replicate, no matter how much they were disappointed when they were on the receiving end. It has taken real work for him to unlearn the habit of promising things first, because he knows the promise will make someone happy, and only then figuring out if he can execute them. Am I the asshole? My wife says I'm asking her to mask. Hi Reddit, sorry for this sock puppet account. I am 34 male and my wife Polly is 32 female. So like a lot of couples, we debrief after our work days. Polly works in a high-touch, high-interaction job, so we usually say our hellos, make dinner, and then eat separately so she can wind down a bit. And then afterwards, we sit in the living room and shoot the shit. Polly has a mild neurodivergence. That means she tells, let's call it branching stories. She'll get bogged down in side stories and background stories, and details that, frankly, add nothing to the core story about her workday. That's usually fine, but I've noticed it getting a bit worse, to the point that by the time she's done, it's basically time to watch a show and go to bed. I mean, I'm spending upwards of an hour just listening and adding, and oh wow, because she says she gets even more distracted when I ask questions. I brought this up with Polly, and she said that I'm asking her to mask her disorder, and that's just how her brain works. I get that feeling, I really do. But I'm starting to feel like I'm a side character here because she takes up all the airtime that we set aside to debrief. Here is why I might be an asshole. I said, well, we all change our communication styles based on context, right? And she said that's different, and that masking is not code switching. I just want some time to talk about my day too, but I don't want her to feel bad. Am I the asshole? Honestly, no. You communicated in a healthy manner. You've done, I feel like, everything you can do without being overbearing here. Your partner's not giving you a fair suck of the sav in this situation, which, is just unfair to you. And for you guys that don't get Aussie English, I'm not explaining myself. If this time that you guys have set aside is to debrief, and she's taking up all the breathing room in this situation, how is that letting you debrief? Especially when you can't add anything to the conversation without it becoming even more so about her. I'd also imagine this is some sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because your way of coping with this is going and oh wow, and I'd imagine if that continues for long enough, without you bringing it up, she'd be like, well, you never ask questions, you never really interact with me, you just nod and agree and don't add anything. I think you've been very much proactive in this situation, and you've taken the lead in trying to solve things. It is now up to her to listen to you and work together on coming to a peaceful resolution here. I can't comprehend in what world changing communication styles based on context is asking her to mask her neurodivergence. That doesn't make sense, that's putting words in your mouth, and again, is unfair to you. So in this situation, I don't think you're the asshole here. In the comments, Zelda T Elitist Art says, not the asshole. There's no reason why you guys can't take turns telling the day's stories. Also, you say she's untreated. Well, she needs to get treated. OP replies, trying. There's also a lot of self-treatment/helper app options out there that simultaneously teach us ADHDers about our condition. I noticed since I was diagnosed with ADD way back when, being the non-hyper type, the term has been made obsolete and rolled into ADHD. I find it strange because there is a massive difference. The biggest of which is this long-rolling, sidetracked storytime problem. I don't have that, but people who do can pick me out of a crowd and almost obsessively want to be friends, to the point where one such chap brought a car the same as mine just for a talking point, despite my lack of need or want for friends. That's insane to me. What? That's a thing? ADD has been removed from the psychiatric diagnosis manual and replaced with ADHD inattentive. Penny Arena says, not the arsehole. What I'm reading is, both of you work outside of the home. At the end of the workday, you cook and eat separately to decompress. After eating, it's time to talk and catch up. However, you never have time to talk about your day. Somebody who has been diagnosed with neurodivergence can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think wanting to share your life with her is expecting her to mask. Is couples therapy an option? Specific Succotash says, I have fairly severe ADHD, and I have to be sure to step back my stories and talking now and then to give other people space. That isn't masking, it's being a considerate person. There is also a difference between demanding silence and saying, hey, that's a lot. I definitely echo the counseling recommendation. OP's wife demanding to be the main character of their home life is not exactly going to be the key to a successful relationship. Also, when in a relationship, it cannot just be about how one feels. She's showing zero regard for how her own husband feels. Yes, this feels like a classic, it's an explanation, not an excuse scenario. The neurodivergence may be why she monopolizes this shared time, but it doesn't make it okay. And if she's able to work in public, it means she has enough control over her condition to do better than this. My mum does this constantly. Is this a neurodiverse symptom? This may not work with your wife, but I tell my own mother that I'm losing the thread of her story, so can she please get back to the main path? Another thing I do is time box her. When I call her, I let her know that I have 30 minutes to talk. Yes, she does 99.98% of the talking, and that's fine, but at the 25-minute mark, I interrupt her and tell her that I only have 5 minutes left. I do this. I love time boxing. It just makes things so efficient in your life. Would recommend. OP replies, she really, really hates being told that she's off topic. It sounds a lot like your wife really enjoys when other people accommodate her divergent behaviors, but really hates having to manage them to accommodate the more typical behavior of others. She has to give you some sort of path forward that's not essentially, you just need to deal with my shit. It seems like she's put you in a position where you can't talk about it, can't avoid it, but can't help her manage it. Painting someone into a corner where they have no choice but to be a pawn and facilitator in your story is not how you manage being neurodivergent. It sounds like you've tried to find solutions. It's her turn to participate in helping to find a solution that makes you feel involved in your own marriage. If she's not willing to help you find a solution, then you need to go speak with a counselor of some sort on how to properly handle this. Update. Okay, so it turns out that I was a little bit of an asshole. Like, nothing wild, but we had a good talk. Here is what she said to me. Being a teacher is hard. Being a teacher with untreated ADHD is even harder. She said she spends all day trying to contain her brain from doing what it naturally does, which is veer off in random directions that may or may not be relevant to a given conversation. So she does that all day, and she literally looks forward to coming home so she doesn't have to do that. Me bringing it up in the context of how we interact at night hurt her feelings because us interacting time is her space where she can just let her brain be her brain. Is masking the right term there? I don't know. She apologized for using it because she saw it on social media and thought that it fit, but it might not. She felt bad for dominating the conversation though, because she's not a monster, and she says she lashed out because she felt bad, but also didn't want to lose access to the time of the day in which she is not fighting with her own brain. We decided to use the advice that I received here in Am I the Asshole? I will go first when we talk at the end of the night. If I regularly go over time, then we will start using a phone timer to make sure everyone has time to talk. And she'll try to work more interaction into her stories, so my role isn't just saying, yeah, over and over. Thank you for the advice. We are using it, and we are confident that it will work. In the comments, Golden Bee says, is treating her ADHD not an option? I think you've got a good compromise for your original issue, but I found myself to have further personal growth once I got mine treated, and it doesn't always mean getting on medication. I and others have had a lot of success with behavioral therapy. Do you love me some CBT? Although my therapist thinks my thought trees is more of a CPTSD syndrome. I related to your wife a lot in the first post because I would seriously digress in personal conversations, hence I nicknamed my habit thought trees, where the trunk is the topic, but all the branches were side comments and digressions. No assholes here, and it sounds like y'all have good communication channels. I 100% agree. My life got better with treatments. I can be a much better partner. I've had some trouble with my prescriptions this summer, so I've had to white-knuckle it through life more. Harder for me and for everyone else. Treatment is such a boon. The comment response on ADHD was so helpful. I have friends who start stories in the middle or share such disjointed thoughts, like, what are you even talking about, man? This gives much better context, and I realize I can be more compassionate to them. As someone with ADHD, it's really accurate to me too, and the whole starting in the middle bit is usually me struggling to filter out what is relevant and what is not, but overshooting it and cutting something useful out. Do you get that thing where there are so many thoughts going on at once that when you're trying to say something or someone asks a question, you legitimately can't answer because your brain overloads and you can't pick the right info out of the static, or you fish out the wrong thing and people just think that you're weird? Because yeah, that's my biggest issue for why it takes me so long to answer sometimes. I'm a teacher with ADHD, and I can no longer take meds due to side effects. I am fried and completely unable to concentrate or mask at the end of the day. However, that doesn't make my husband's or kids' needs go away or just matter less somehow. We accommodate. All four of us, parents and kids, have it. We have to accommodate somehow, or we would fall apart. Just a fun fact from your local anxiety-riddled ADHD sufferer, they do make medications for ADHD that are not stimulants. Clonidine is a great example. No idea your situation, obviously, but I thought I'd share. Our next post is by user offmychesttemp2255, titled, "My husband came to terms with his death, and I just can't deal with it." I, 42 female, have been married to my husband, male 38, for over 10 years. We met when I was 24 in a club. Ever since I knew him, he could never accept any health damages. He fell from a ladder from 2 meters or so, went into hospital just because I insisted. When he was 25, he started to complain about his knee hurting really badly when he bends it. It took me 5 years to send him to the doctor over this. He ended up having surgery, after which he was supposed to rest for 2 months. After 2 weeks, he was back at working out and jogging. 2 years ago, he was diagnosed with leukemia. He straight away stopped smoking after the diagnosis and worked out even more than before so that he could boost his health. It didn't help at all, and last month his health went downhill. He got all pale, he got weak to the point that I had to help him upstairs on a few occasions. 2 days ago, while dining, our daughter, 15 female, asked if he could take her hiking to the Alps next year. He just said something along the lines of, "I'm not sure if I'll still be around by that time." I still held my cool. After that, our daughters left to go to sleep and I blew up on him. I just started screaming. I can't even remember exactly what it was anymore. Something like, "From the moment I met you, you never gave in to any health condition. You always overcame everything. And from now, out of nowhere, you accept your own death?" Normally, he would raise his voice at me saying, "We are not animals in this house, so we will not scream at each other." But not then. He just glared into the corner of the kitchen and said nothing. And when his eyes started watering, my heart shattered into thousands of pieces. In that moment, I knew I only have a short time left with the love of my life, and I will forever regret blowing up at him. In the comments, Cold Committee says, "I have medical conditions that almost killed me on a number of occasions. I've spent weeks in the hospital in total madness because of the amount of drugs they were giving me to control the pain and keep me calm in case I wasn't going to make it. What I learned? There are things in life that we can experience that are worse than death. I used to think that dementia wouldn't be so bad as long as I wasn't in pain, when in fact, it was terrifying. Worse than physical pain is the feeling that you no longer have any control." I don't know if that's the same realization that your husband came to, but he has a big fight on his hands. Perhaps he may know more than what he is saying. Anyway, I no longer fear death, but fear the pain and madness of end-of-life preparations even more. He may have accepted the inevitability of it all and just needs you to be present. People don't realize how terrifying it is to have no control in your life until they do. And losing part of your mind can be one of the most terrifying things, for when you can't even control yourself, you feel like there's nothing you can control. It's emotional for everyone, and nothing can prepare you for it. He's already forgiven you, OP. Yeah, 100%. I can guarantee you, he definitely isn't thinking about how she yelled at him about this. He's probably thinking about everything he's done with his family. First steps, home, vacation, school dance, etc. A 10-year-old boy in my town has been fighting cancer since he was 5. He never complained about the pain or the multiple treatments that he had to endure. When the doctor said that there was no more they could do, and his parents, fighting to keep their composure, told him, he comforted them and told them, "It's okay, heaven sounds pretty good right now." And he passed about a week later. Oof, that is so sad. That's probably what OP's husband doesn't want, to put the family through that. Blood cancer is one of the more difficult ones to get rid of, and it always comes back one way or another. Back up to the post, we have an edit. I apologized for everything. He told me that I didn't even have to, that it's only natural, and that stages of grief are a real thing. To all the people saying he deserved it because he was smoking, I hope you never have to go through something like this. At first, I didn't even want to edit anything here, but seeing how many people showed their sympathy, I needed to say thank you to all of you. We had a long talk today, and I decided to arrange bucket list days for him so he enjoys the last few months he has. Updates. I miss my husband so much. Hello, Reddit. I hadn't really had the intention to post on here again, but my therapist thought that it might be therapeutic to do so since it helped me the last time. My kids are at my late husband's parents', so I've had some wine to give me the strength to actually write this down. As you might have guessed from my previous text, it happened. My husband died about half a year ago, and I miss him so damn much. I've wanted to thank all of you who suggested grief counseling. Me, my late husband, and our 2 daughters started attending about 2 months after my original post, and without it, we would most likely be more destroyed than we already are. I also wanted to thank the person who suggested for my husband to film videos for our daughter's life goals. We together made some videos for their graduation, marriage, first child, and other major life goals. It actually took us much longer than it could have because it was just too hard for us. The realization of the fact that our life together was over was just so hard. If the text doesn't make sense, I'm very sorry. I'm crying with every word I write, and I take breaks, so the text might be unreadable. I will try to correct any mistakes. Now to the happy part. Before the love of my life got really bad, we tried to do as many things from his bucket list as possible. I never thought that I could enjoy so many things I wouldn't care for otherwise, like MMA. It was his passion for such a long time, but he never actually saw any fight in person. We finally went to the castle in the center of our city for the first time after living here for 6 years. Never had the time. Now we had all the time in the world for ourselves and our kids. We traveled a lot. We went to see the Stonehenge, which is such a curious sight. After that, we went to see the fjords, which fascinated him so much. We went to see the Northern Lights, too. It was just so beautiful. We couldn't stay long anywhere, so we could get back to my husband's therapy, and the girls had to go to school. We also got to see the Colosseum and some more great sights. I hated myself for quite some time after the events of my last post. When he was still alive, he mentioned it only once, told me not to worry about it, that it was just the silent thoughts said out loud, that he doesn't want me to ever worry about it again or he'll haunt me. Some of you might think that it was not nice, but we used to have a specific humor, and we have one rule in our house. As long as it's funny, it's allowed. Also, if the person who is the butt of the joke finds it funny, then it's okay. He got really bad about a month before passing. I mean, when we were traveling, he was in a wheelchair, but that was only for the long walks. But the last month, he already couldn't move without it. I hated to see him in that state. It hurt both me and our daughters. It was just so painful, and I also saw his pain in his eyes. He was so angry that he couldn't go by his own way. Euthanasia is not legal where we live. He was always pro, I didn't used to be, but now when I saw how much pain he was in, I would do anything just for him to feel better. He deserved to choose his own way out. What he didn't deserve was to spend his last days in pain or under drugs. His last moments, our whole family were with him. With my parents and in-laws too, in one of his last moments conscious, he told us all how much he loves us. I tried to be so strong for our girls, and I was. I stayed together until after his funeral. After seeing him lifeless, I broke down knowing that it's all over. But at least he didn't feel any more pain. I will never forget you, Patrick. I will forever love you. You were my light in this dark world. You were the fire that kept me from freezing. Now I'll try to be as good of a support as you were to me, to our daughters, who love you so much. Miss you. In the comments, Mrs.239 says, I am so sorry for your loss. I too am a young widow. Cancer struck at 31, and he was gone in 10 months. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I'd loved him since the 9th grade. I didn't know how I was going to live without him. It literally takes one day at a time. Sometimes it took going hour by hour. Let me see if I can still go to this next hour without crying. Then I made it to a day without crying, and then a week. It's been over 11 years, and some days are still hard. It took a long time to date again, but I'm finally in a wonderful and stable relationship. It took me 10 years to find him. You're a strong woman and a great mother to your kids. The love stays with you. Take your time to grieve, and I hope that the life that you live from here on out is a beautiful one. OP replies, I know I still got a long way ahead of me. I had such a long time to prepare for this, and yet I still feel like I have no idea where to go from here. The hardest thing for me was when my late husband wanted to talk about the post-me future. I know that it was necessary, and thanks to it, I have at least some sense of direction, but I feel like the world will just never be the same again. I'm super happy that you healed, and I hope to once be like you. Stoner Jack says, the last words I ever heard from my mum were, I love you, my darling boy. I'm no darling, but my mum loved me, and she never let me forget it. Parents, for Pete's sakes, always tell your children that you love them. Always. That's what parents do, and we all love them for that. I hope you believe what she conveyed to you on her deathbed. One never lies before their death. Reading this, hoping I never have to experience either side of this tragic story, but knowing the reality of cancer, it's highly likely I will. We all will. Treasure every moment like it's our last, build memories, and spend quality time with the ones we love. And I think that's a really beautiful message to go out on. I don't personally have too much to add to this one. I didn't have too much commentary because I don't have much experience with death in this capacity. Like, yes, it did kind of suck that OP lashed out at the husband there, but at that point it seemed as though he had accepted his death. And what can you do besides just be there to support him? We all react in just different ways when going through immense amounts of grief and pain. So I can't fault OP for yelling at him because I don't think she knew what to do in that instance. All I can hope from here on out is that OP is doing better and is slowly dealing with this grief as best she can. Would I be the asshole for not telling my husband I'm pregnant until after he's back from his trip? My husband's a stay-at-home dad to our 4-year-old daughter. He is an extremely devoted and loving dad who has barely spent any time away from her, and she is a major daddy's girl. In 2 weeks, he's going to visit his best friend from college for a whole week. He's going to be reuniting with his college friends that he hasn't seen or spent time with altogether since our own wedding. He originally wanted the 3 of us to go, but I convinced him to just go himself because I think being alone would make him enjoy it more so he didn't have to do his childcare. I think our daughter is too young for that big of a trip for people she's only met once, and also I'm planning on taking a week off work and would love to spend one-on-one time with her that we so rarely get. This morning, I learned that I'm pregnant. We've been trying for some time now and really want lots of kids, so I'm over the moon, and I know my husband and daughter will be too. I've not told my husband yet. My first pregnancy, he was a huge prepper, and when I first learned I was pregnant, he went into overdrive with preparing, researching, and taking care of me. He was incredibly helpful and loving, and it was so sweet, but he also really worked himself up and got stressed. I don't think it'll be as bad with this one, but I could still see it being a lot. I honestly don't really want to tell him until after his trip, in 3 weeks, even though it's a huge secret for me to keep. I think he'll potentially be upset, which with him is very, very tame, when he finds out I'd known for 3 weeks, but he would get over it fast. My concern with telling him is I could honestly see it ruining his trip. I can just imagine the constant texts asking me for questions for the millionth time, or sharing his most recent thoughts. I really, really want him to have a chill and fun trip and be able to decompress. And for myself, I want to be able to just focus on having a great time with my girl. But I also don't want to just hide something so hugely important to our family from him, since he obviously deserves to know. I can't really decide. Would I be the asshole if I decided to wait to tell him until after his trip? I don't think so, no. I think you've stated perfectly reasonable explanations as to why you shouldn't tell him right away. 3 weeks just really isn't that long of a time to keep from him, given that you're doing it so that he has a great trip and doesn't drive himself crazy with anxiety and over-prepping like he has previously. I think that's more than fair, and I hope that when the time comes, he also understands where you're coming from and why you did what you did. Seeing as though he's such a wonderful person, I would guess that he does. So I'm gonna go not the asshole and no assholes here. In the comments, Broadside02195 says, "Not the asshole. That being said, make sure that you don't tell anyone else until he knows. Try to plan some sort of surprise for him when he gets home. Not a party or anything, just something small to surprise him with the news. Congratulations." Welcome home, honey. The 3 of us are so glad you're back. I wonder if it'll take him a moment, but I think it would be more fun if their daughter and mum plan a surprise together. Make it fun and cute. Not the asshole, but don't tell anyone else until after you tell him. This, you both enjoy your mini vacays. Plan a fun way to reveal the happy news when he returns. Not the asshole. Spare him the trouble and let him enjoy his trip. Well done. Not the asshole. You could make a surprise for when he comes back. My sister-in-law did this for her husband. She waited 2 weeks to tell him on his birthday because they had been trying for 3 years and finally had the money put aside for IVF. She went to the first appointment and found out she was pregnant. Update. So I hadn't planned to give an update so soon, but even though I'd planned on waiting until after my husband's trip, after a few days it became clear to me that I could not wait that long. He definitely knew that something was up with me. I've been getting crazy excited and been chomping at the bit to tell him, and honestly, it just didn't feel good to keep something that big from him for so long. We've been trying for this baby for close to a year now, and it's such happy news, and I decided that it's just not worth it. But I still wanted to give him the surprise I had planned. I asked him to go to the store to grab something really quick, and before he got home, I had my daughter put a shirt that I'd gotten her that had "Only Child" crossed out with "Big Sister" written underneath. When he came through the front door, she sprinted at him, yelling about how her shirt had a secret message for him. He was very taken aback, lol, and it took him a second, but once it clicked, he was beyond excited. As was our very confused daughter once we told her. She started dancing around the house singing about having a baby sister, which she is adamant it will be, and it was just a really good day. He is still going on his trip and has not even been close to as stressed as he was the last time. If anything, he's looking forward to it even more now because he knows it's going to be a last chance to really decompress before things become a whole lot crazier. Thank you so much everyone for all the lovely comments and responses that I got. I really appreciated them all. I showed my husband the post and admitted my original plans, and he got a big kick out of it, lol. But he is very glad that I told him before the trip. Thanks again. In the comments, Pristine Resource says, "Congratulations. Happy you decided to be honest with your husband about something you had both been trying for. It's clear this lifted some weight off his shoulders and will add a spring to his step at work. Wishing you and your family the best." I was definitely team tell him before he leaves, because then he can brag to his friends and he'll be probably in a way better mood than he would have been just going for vacation. I hope they have that on video. The big reveal sounded so cute. Our next post is by user Throwaway, titled, "Not comfortable with my husband being friends with female coworker." Throwaway because he knows my username, edited with names so it's easier to read. No update as of yet because I think about decisions before implementing them. Also, we started couples therapy in September, so it hasn't been that long. Here's the full story. Co-worker, female 24, we will call her Debbie, started working with my husband, male 35, we'll call him Charlie, 2 years ago. Last September, I met her for the first time at a wedding of 2 of their co-workers. She sat behind us. The girl getting married does not like my husband, but he's on the same shift, and the whole shift was invited to the wedding. The girl getting married had called Charlie a snake to Debbie in casual conversation. They are not friends, and Charlie is generally a good person in my opinion, so that's not a red flag to me. Debbie told Charlie about this, so at this point it's a running inside joke that I was privy to. Back to the wedding, Charlie texts Debbie, snake, and Debbie mouths, stop, all flirty. I did think it was flirty, but thought that may just be her personality. Fast forward to the shift Christmas party last year. We have been hosting shift Christmas parties at our house for 2 years. The whole shift was there, but Debbie brings her twin sister as a +1. One thing about her job is that it's a male-dominated field, but I'm friends with a few of his co-workers' wives. So during the party, all the women were hanging out, except Debbie and her twin sister. She was hanging with the guys. I just assumed it was because she didn't really know most of the women. No big deal, but the next day, she sends Charlie a couple of photos that she had snapped of him without his knowledge. The photos were accompanied by the text, "Why did I take these? Lol?" He showed me this and his response, which was pretty PG, but I did remark something along the lines of, "Lol, I think she has a crush on you," and he brushed that off. Fast forward to February, his co-workers are all in their 20s, and they convinced Charlie to get Snapchat. I've never been a fan of Snapchat, and Charlie's never had any form of social media except Reddit. After he gets Snapchat, I noticed he's on the phone a lot more. I'm naturally a nosy person, and I realize that's a flaw of mine, so I notice that he is beginning to talk about Debbie more, and I start questioning who he's chatting with. One thing I notice is that every single time he works overtime, she snaps him and asks if he is working, or she'll ask if he worked it the next day. I tell him she's starting to make me uncomfortable. He brushes that off. March. We go to a new co-worker's house on a Wednesday night for a dinner party. None of the wives that I'm friends with are there. I also have to work on Thursday, and no one else does. Before we go to the party, we discuss leaving at a reasonable time. At 9:45 p.m., I ask him what time we're leaving. He hems and haws around, and I admittedly get frustrated and walk off. He gets mad and decides that he is staying as late as he wants. I keep asking when we are leaving and reminding him that I have to work. I spend the rest of the night crying on the couch in a stranger's house. 4 people come to check on me. Charlie and Debbie never do, and I can see them sitting beside each other outside. Edit, we end up leaving the party at around 1:30 a.m. In May, we go to a hot air balloon festival an hour from our home. He sees on her Snapchat story that Debbie is about 30 minutes away. He tells her where we are and asks her to meet up. I'm not really privy to this conversation, except that I asked him who he was talking to, and it was her. We get in an argument and leave before she arrives, and then he tells me that's what they were talking about. In June, we go to London for vacation, and we're arriving back in the States on our anniversary. I post a super cute slideshow. Debbie sees it. Debbie then snaps Charlie about someone breaking into her car. I express that I think it's weird. In August, Charlie says that he stopped talking to Debbie because it made me upset. He's been distancing from me for a few months though, so I still have a gut feeling that something isn't right. He got a new phone in July, but saved his old phone. I let my intrusive thoughts win, and I look at his old phone. Charlie and Debbie talked on the phone for 45 minutes while I was at work, and they were both off work. I log into Charlie's TikTok account. He sent her a video from Barstool Sports of a girl telling a guy, "I have a crush on you," and the guy reacting really good to it. 2 days before he sent that video, Debbie responds one that says, When you're trying to go to sleep but all you can think about is wanting him in your bed? And 2 days after he sent her the crush video, she reposts a video that says, "The most confusing place you can be is knowing you have a connection with someone, but you're not officially together, but you're more than friends." I confront him and tell him that this is an inappropriate relationship. After I confront him, she deletes her videos. He claims he didn't talk to her about it and still maintains that they stopped talking. Last week, I decided to check his Snapchat on his old phone because I'm still having a gut feeling. They've been #1 BFFs on Snapchat for at least 2 weeks. They talk every single day. She sends him a pic of herself in her pajamas. "Now I'm in my PJs, lol," while I'm looking. It wasn't risque, but I've never once sent any of my male friends a selfie of myself, much less in my pajamas. I tell him I'm not comfortable with their friendship and I would like him to stop being friends with her. Side note, we are in couples therapy as well. During a fight, he tells me that he likes having friends. I have no problem with any of his other friends. I ask him why he lied and said that he stopped talking to her. He said because he knew that I didn't like it. I feel like I can no longer trust him, and he basically told me that he would rather be friends with her than be married to me. I've asked all of my friends if I'm overreacting, and all of them have told me to leave him. We've been married for 13 years, and together for a total of 15. So Reddit, am I overreacting? I don't know, OP. You've caught him red-handed so many times, and he's not even really tried to fight it, he's just denied it. He also just told you he would rather break the marriage than stop talking to her. How many more subliminal messages do you need? I don't think you're overreacting, but I think some change needs to happen. He doesn't care. In the comments, Elderpin says, quote, "And he basically told me that he would rather be friends with her than married to me. He's told you what's happening. Why are you not listening? Talk about burying the lead. She could have saved me this whole read. Girl, that man don't want you. Get out of there." Yeah, I feel like there's been several "I'm upset my spouse has a friend at work" posts recently, where the partner seems paranoid but the behavior is pretty mundane. This is giant flashing red sirens with bright colored fireworks right from the jump. She needs to run. File for divorce. Time to get serious. And he needs to know that you're serious because repeatedly telling him how uncomfortable you are isn't working. Happily married person here, no, you're not overreacting. If I were in your shoes, there would be no coming back from this. He is emotionally cheating. Honestly, OP is severely underreacting. The husband's continued behavior shows that he doesn't care about OP's communicated concerns, and his response was to hide, lie about it, and then gaslight OP when caught. Not to mention that he outright told OP that his relationship with a friend is more important to him than his marriage to OP. OP needs to grow a backbone and stop being a doormat. See how attracted to him she is when he's living in a little one-bedroom apartment after you have to sell the house, and you take half of what it's worth during the divorce. I'm a male, and I approve of this. Your husband is a douche. Let her have him. And the day-to-day reality of their now average relationship sinks in. She's probably just thrilled from the ego boost she feels by pulling a guy away from his marriage. Update. So I gave him an ultimatum, do not recommend, and he has a lawyer friend. He went to see his friend 2 days later. He decided that it wasn't for him. Our therapist convinced him to block the coworker. We were working on the marriage. I honestly think that we were making progress. We were starting to be able to talk about issues without them getting super heated. He was actually opening up in therapy. And then he was triggered by his avoidant attachment style. He went to Debbie's birthday dinner, and I didn't. He stayed at his parents' house and came home the next day. I got a Snapchat request from a new female friend, and noticed on my list that Debbie had a top friend in common with me. I don't really use Snapchat, except to send videos to a female friend that has an iPhone, while I have an Android. So I have 2 best friends on Snapchat, Carrie and Charlie. Debbie has the sunglasses emoji next to her name on my list. It can only mean that Charlie added her back. I asked him to pack a bag and to leave. I'm calling a lawyer ASAP Monday. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. In the comments, Damn, OP. That really sucks, but I'm glad you stood up for yourself. What was the reason he decided to go to the party? Also, why did he stay at his parents'? That's really suspicious. How did he react when you asked him to leave? And OP replies, he had told me about the party Wednesday, and we had planned to go together. Friday morning, we had a counseling appointment, and the therapist basically told him that he needed to start feeling his feelings instead of bottling them in. This triggered his avoidant attachment style. He seemed down all day, and I told him that I wasn't going to the party. He told me that he wasn't going to change right before he left, and I told him that we couldn't work without change. That's why he stayed at his parents'. He came back Saturday, and I asked him to leave Saturday night. I just caught up by reading your first post. I'm so sorry, OP. You were definitely not wrong. There is clearly something going on between these two. Speak out loud and clear. Tell your in-laws who live next door, tell your friends and relatives, tell all your co-workers. You tried for months and you tried therapy, but your husband has been having an inappropriate relationship with his co-worker and lying to you about it for months now. At the very least, he is in the throes of an emotional affair with her, but sorry, I suspect much more than that. It's time to get lawyers involved and hold your head up. You tried harder than he deserved. If my husband told me he'd rather be friends with another woman than be married to me, I would be done. Mine did exactly that. We just separated, and I'm starting the divorce process. I could have written this whole OP. It's such a cliche, like they have a playbook to run through. Bullshit, he stayed with his parents. OP should call the in-laws to make sure he's lying. Might be good evidence for the divorce. Coworker was right. Charlie is a snake. Yes, my thought was maybe coworker called him a snake for flirting with others knowing he was married, and Debbie brushes it off, telling Charlie that it wasn't flirting and liked it. Agreed. When I saw that comment, I thought coworker is seeing far more than what the wife is seeing going on at work. Sadly, I went through something very similar to this with my ex-husband. His object of affection was our next-door neighbor. He's a 30-something that is feeling flattered that a 20-something is crushing on him. I had a friend who was a counselor who said an affair is a conspiracy of two. Said it's very easy to think the grass is greener when you don't have to deal with the realities of life. That's why so many affairs that turn into relationships don't last. When that sexy affair partner is suddenly yelling at you to pick up your underwear off the floor, or that handsome man doesn't put the dishes in the dishwasher, the shine wears off. It's sad that this has to come for OP, but at the same time, divorce is really the best option, because OP's husband is unreliable and definitely has the hots for Debbie. I wouldn't be surprised if the husband and Debbie had been having an affair this entire time. They definitely have had an emotional affair for some time, and it likely turned physical before he stopped being interested in sex with OP. I'm curious how long Debbie and Charlie will last post-divorce. The way you get him is often the way you lose him. Would I be the asshole for ending a close friendship over dog sitting? I've known this friend for 20 years and considered her to be one of my best friends. We've had some contentious conversations over the years, mostly to her making me feel inadequate because I was always trailing just behind in her shadow, and now as adults, she's more successful than I am. I would never hold that against her, but she does like to rub it in my face. Her and her fiancé bought a house. Every time we go out to eat, she makes a show of paying, saying that she likes spoiling her friends, etc., etc. I work 2 jobs and am actively trying to find one job that pays the bills so that I don't have to, and my workplace situation is becoming increasingly hostile at both. Her workplace is also spiraling into hostility, and she's been planning a vacation abroad for months. She's asked me a couple of months ago to dog sit for her as one of her 2 dogs is elderly and sickly. I agreed to do it, and she's due to leave on Thursday for 10 days. I know she's really looking forward to it, as her last vacation was ruined by COVID. Well, my dad called me yesterday and said that he might have found someone with the power to pull some strings and at least get me an interview at a company that I applied to. This person has helped others, and my dad said that if the job happens, it'll happen fast. I told him that I agreed to dog sit, and he said that I should put myself before their dogs and that they can figure something else out. So I called my friend to tell her about the situation. She was understandably upset, but I assured her that as of right now, nothing has changed, but that it would be prudent to have a backup prepared just in case, which she should do anyway, me potentially moving out of state notwithstanding. We talked about it, at which point she asked, if they offer you the job, are you really going to take it? And I said, what are you talking about? Of course I am. I can't stay in this job much longer. You know that. And I told her if they offered, I'd have to ask for a couple of weeks anyway to pack up my apartment and house hunt. She hemmed and hawed about not having anyone else to watch the dogs, rushed off the phone to go make some phone calls. A few hours later, she sends me this text. If I can't find anyone to at least take old dog by Monday, I need you to watch the dogs as promised, or I'll have to consider shortening or cancelling my trip. I'm sorry if this means that you have to miss out on a job opportunity, but old dog is too medically fragile to board, and I'm struggling to make other plans right before I leave. I was stunned, and then I was pissed. This woman really just straight up said, I'm sorry, but your financial stability is expendable and a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. It took some input from a friend to come up with a civil reply, wherein I reiterated the point that A, I was still planning to watch the dogs, and B, regardless of my situation, it would make sense to have a backup, in case I had an emergency myself and couldn't be with the dogs. She responded, well, in that case, I would figure something out, but this isn't an emergency. Every person I've asked about this has been equally as stunned by her reaction and her demand that I pass up this hypothetical job opportunity that I haven't even been offered yet. We've had issues in the past where she talked down to me, but this is the worst by far. My family has repeatedly asked me why I still talk to her when she treats me this way. And I've often spoken in her defense that she's there for me when I need her, but this makes me realize what she truly thinks about me, that I am just a pity case that she keeps around to use for her convenience. When she gets back from vacation, I plan to quietly block her and to never speak to her again. Would I be wrong to do so? No. I do not think you would be wrong to do so in that situation, OP. They sound toxic. They sound like they do not care about you. You are just a punching bag for them. You are just free babysitting, free dog sitting for them. They do not care about even finding a backup, and they have shown you, through their words and through their actions, that you don't mean anything to them. The fact that in response to your civil and very much understandable concerns and words that you have shared with them, they don't respond to you in a kind and gentle manner where they understand what you're having to deal with. And any reasonable person would be like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm going to make backup plans. That's smart. Thank you. I forgot to do that. I didn't think that I'd need to do that initially, but thank you. That makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate you doing this for me in the first place. And good luck with the job interview if you do get it. No, instead they're like, how dare you? How dare you do better for yourself? How dare you screw me over, you piece of dirt? At that point, that would communicate to me personally that they are not friends, and I'd be like, all right, good luck with the dogs, I'm out, you go screw yourself. No one speaks to me like that as a friend. But yeah, you can take it further from that if you want to and block them after the fact. That's a much nicer and more compassionate thing to do, and I respect you for that, OP. So no, I do not think you would be wrong for doing that. In the comments, Cockle Cove says, the way she treats you, I wouldn't even watch the dogs at all. You know she won't be making any other arrangements when you get the call. She won't shorten her vacation to care for her dogs. The dogs will be the ones alone. She doesn't deserve to have you as a friend. Back out now. Screw her and look out for yourself. OP replies, the only reason I'm not backing out is because I know her work situation is bad, and despite everything, I do want her to take the vacation and enjoy it. She's worked hard for it. I'm taking the high road and doing her this one last favor, but if the job offer comes in, I'm taking it. I'll explain to them that I have a prior commitment and need time away, which was my plan to begin with. Her dog can die at any moment, and she would rather go on vacay. If she's that well off, she can afford a nice dog kennel. She doesn't have any other friends to help out. Another flag if you are her only friend to take care of the dogs. Take her dogs, give them a better life, and then block her. That maybe is too far. I don't suggest stealing the dogs. That's unlawful life pro tips. OP replies, I can't afford dogs of my own, or I would've. I can barely afford to keep the roof over my head and food on my table as it is. Besides which, I don't have the capacity to care for 2 needy dogs. The older one is sickly, and the younger one has attachment issues and will not leave you alone, ever. She's cute, but it gets old real fast, and I'm the most convenient option because I'm the only one available that has a schedule that allows me to be home anywhere close to as much as they are with the dogs. Yeah, she isn't a good friend. She might be a friend, and there is love there deep down, a sense of familiarity and comfort, but she doesn't have your best interests at heart. A good friend would get heated in the moment at the spontaneity of the situation and fear of no holiday, but later would calm down and make an effort to find other arrangements. If she's aware that you've been looking for a switch-up, why would a good friend let you jeopardize that for her holiday? She has other friends, surely. Cousins, siblings even, anyone. Or she could sacrifice some money and find a reputable, well-known doggy daycare. My dog goes in one every holiday and doesn't want to come back because he loves it. It takes research and a little time to find one, but she says she loves spoiling people, right? So, why not her dog? Or does she only like spending money when it's to make you feel lower than her? Even if you don't have this interview, I'd really consider this friendship. Maybe don't cut it off now without expressing to her how you feel. What follows from that conversation and her reaction is your answer. If she gaslights you and makes you out like you're overreacting, or gets angry at you for expressing how that made you feel, get rid. If she hears you out, engages, apologizes, or even a mere acknowledgement of how that could be selfish, then maybe keep at the friendship. OP replies, she has other options she can pursue, she just doesn't want to. They both work from home and are with the dogs near 24/7. My part-time job is 2.5-hour shifts a day with a long break between. My second job is freelance and I can do from anywhere. She literally brought up at least 3 other options in her freaking out, but either they have full-time jobs and can't be with them most of the day, have dogs that don't get along with hers, or in her words, she doesn't trust in her house because they're kinda slobs. And she will not board with the older dog because he's too fragile, and she worries about him getting kennel cough. So I'm the only option because I'm the most convenient option. Wait, her work-from-home job is a hostile work environment? OP says, verbal abuse is still abuse. I am not at liberty to share any more details than that, unfortunately, which is ironic given how she turned around and used verbal abuse on me in this instance. Update. They're back from their trip. I left them a long note detailing everything they needed to know about the dogs. She'd tried to leave an envelope of cash and said that she'd cut me a check for the other half when they got back, and I tacked on a bit in my note saying to consider my dog sitting a birthday gift for them both, and left the money. She messaged me thanking me and said she had some souvenirs she couldn't leave on my doorstep and asked to meet up. I just told her to get some rest and I quietly blocked her. Is it cowardly? Probably, but I have enough going on in my life, and frankly the idea of a confrontation makes me sick. As for the job offer, it never came. Dad's friend said that he was worried my relevant experience was all part-time. I rechecked my application and it had been kicked back as incomplete, so I resubmitted it. I got no notification, but I checked the submission again and got the "thank you for your interest, unfortunately we're moving forward with other candidates at this time." So, all that for nothing. Lost a dear friend who showed her true colors over a job offer that never came. Thank you to everyone who commented with their words of encouragement before. I'm gonna go have a good cry and figure out where to go from here. In the comments, FarCup9063 says, I'm so sorry this happened, but you know where you stand with this person. I feel like if your ex-friend posted from her perspective, everyone would be agreeing with her too. You committed to something months in advance, and right before you started, said that you might cancel because you might get a new job, when by your own story, you've been looking for a new job for a while. Her crimes include inviting you out for and treating you to dinner because she has a good job and you have 2 bad jobs. She paid for your dog sitting, so doesn't seem to take you or your time for granted. besides being more successful than you and panicking when you tried to cancel on a commitment to care for her elderly fragile dog for a job offer that you seemingly were never qualified for or likely to get, but which you then said you wouldn't start the job for weeks so it wouldn't impact you dog sitting, so you just called to panic her for what? OP says, I did not try and cancel. I called and told her in case the opportunity came up because she deserved to know, not because I wanted to panic her. I told her as much that I would rather have given her notice ahead of her departing than calling her while she was abroad and ruining her trip. As far as the job went, I would have asked for the extra few weeks, but if they said that I needed to be up there the following week, I would have done it. If the situation had been reversed and she told me that she had been given the job offer, I would have done everything in my power to arrange a backup just in case. All I was asking was for her to have something lined up. She fought with me even to do that much because she had every reason available why so-and-so wouldn't work. It had to be me because I was the only person willing and available to give up 2 weeks of my life. She even had to approve the overtime shifts that I took because her dogs couldn't be left alone for more than a few hours at a time, so I lost money because of it. I don't know why I got turned down for the job. I am qualified, or else the guy would have never even requested my resume directly to begin with. At this point, I am so defeated by my job search that I don't even ask why anymore because I never get any answers. I can't even get my foot in the door to build the full-time experience they're looking for, or even an interview for the chance to explain my work. But my part-time experience is nothing to sneeze at. There is much I did not say about our friendship, but the money waving is not the only time she's made me feel less than. Telling me it's not the company's fault you don't know how to budget when I'd gone 3 months without pay. Giving me a Budget Bites cookbook for Christmas, telling me about the staff positions that opened up at her job, but you wouldn't be interested in those kinds of jobs. Telling me in the same conversation about me struggling to find a good-paying job, how she's in a position to turn down a job offer from a multi-million-dollar company because she didn't feel like moving, and in fact she did not plan on paying me at all when she asked me to dog sit. I suspected she only tried to pay me because she realized how upset I was by her asking me to give up a shot at financial stability, and a couple $100 is a paltry apology given the amount that I would have lost in the long term. At this point, I want nothing from her, and I left the cash. Our next post is by user Maximum Jello, titled, I think my boyfriend is stalking me. I recently moved to a new state a few hours away from where my boyfriend lives. This was for school, and also because I had an issue where my boyfriend hid a camera in our bedroom, so he was spying on me. It pretty much ruined our relationship. Behind my apartment building is an old parking deck. No one parks back there, and it's patrolled by the police. A few weeks after moving in, I noticed an old truck parking at the top directly across from my window where they could see inside. Like, he parked where his window lined up with mine. It was during strange hours, like 3 or 4 in the morning. I started closing my blinds at night. It was such a strange thing too, because it's not like they could see inside very well, and I'm only sleeping with the covers wrapped around me. I couldn't believe that someone would really park across the street to watch a stranger sleep. Anyways, they kept coming back. I would peek out the blinds, and the truck would be there about once a week. I couldn't figure out who it was, just the color of the truck. I started thinking about a comment my boyfriend made about how from the parking deck, you could see straight inside my windows. I didn't think much of it at the time because it seemed obvious that someone would be able to, but I started wondering if maybe he was the one driving up there at night. My boyfriend doesn't own an old truck, but my dad does that matches the truck that I keep seeing. To be fair, it is a generic white Ford, and he's mentioned he's been letting my boyfriend borrow it. Also, this never happens when my boyfriend is there. I am terrified. I do want to break up with him, but now I'm afraid that the stalking will get worse. I'm hoping it's a weird stranger, but for reasons I do believe it's him. In the comments, AppyGirl2013 says, aside from all the posts bashing you still being with this guy, here's some actual advice. Every time you see the truck, call the non-emergency police number for your city and report a suspicious vehicle. Ask them to come by and check it out. If you can get the plate number off it, then even better. Keep a journal, or better yet, Google Chrome document. It automatically tracks when changes are made to it as time-stamped proof of all the dates and times you notice the truck. Also, mark down when you called police, the time, and who you talked with. Ask your dad for specific dates that he's let him borrow the truck. If they align with when the truck is there, then you have an answer. If he doesn't know, then start asking the day after you see the truck if he lent it out to your boyfriend. Mark down everything. If the stalking escalates when you break things off with him, which you should, then you can get a restraining order, but having the provided evidence will help with that. If you feel safe doing so, ask your dad to stop lending him the truck. If nothing else, then maybe stage it to look like you're not home that night or came home super late and see if he asks about it. He wouldn't know unless he's tracking you. Also, update all your passwords. Make sure he doesn't have the shared location turned on for your devices. Start by changing all email passwords, and check to make sure he's not forwarding copies of your emails or has his account set as the backup first. Then move outward with all the banking and credit cards, and then other personal accounts. A step further would be to update security questions as well, and then Apple or similar accounts. So on, until all passwords are completely changed and ones you have never used before. Booty Do I See You says, OP, to add to asking for dates of when your dad let him borrow the truck, if you're comfortable with it, also ask your dad to keep track of what the mileage was when he gave it to your boyfriend and what the mileage was when it was returned. If he's driving it several hours away each time he borrows it, then he's racking up some serious mileage on it. There may be a way to reset the mileage to a reasonable number if your boyfriend happens to think about doing that, but if your dad let him borrow the truck for a night or two, and it's returned with 700 added miles on a weekend when the truck was parked outside your apartment, then that's a pretty strong indicator that it's him in the parking deck. Tell your dad he's using it to stalk you. Hopefully her dad isn't of the, well, maybe you just need to marry him and stop all the foolishness type. It would be lovely to think that a young woman's dad would go in straight into protector mode, but unfortunately, a lot of fathers do not recognize their daughters as autonomous human beings. If it is your boyfriend, that's really scary. Think about the kind of mindset that first secretly filmed you in your bedroom and then would borrow a truck and drive up to watch you in the middle of the night. I want you to be alarmed because I want you to be very cautious. Listen to the advice that other commenters give you in terms of safety. This is very serious. He sounds dangerous, and I want you to be safe. OP replies, thank you. I do want to break up with him, but it is scary. Update. I am happy to say that he is now my ex. He did not take the news well and broke my phone, which is why it took me time to update because I had to get a new one. I did confront him about the stalking. He told me I was crazy and said that women don't know cars, so it could have been a white van instead of a white truck. He also said that the person might be working or busy doing something. He was unconcerned about the situation, so either it was him or he doesn't care that someone is looking into my windows. I told him that next time I was calling the police. Either way, it has stopped. I'm 90% sure it's him because of the stupid excuses. Who drives to an empty parking garage and parks directly across from someone's window to work instead of all the other empty spaces and floors that aren't facing my window? I talked to my dad, and my boyfriend has been borrowing his truck for months now. Apparently, he told my dad that it was for work, so I did speak to my dad about taking his truck back. As for why my dad lent out his truck, they live in the same town. I am the one who moved away to a new state by myself. I've checked my bedroom for hidden cameras. There are none that are obvious, but I feel like there could still be one. If anyone has tips for finding hidden cameras, then let me know. In the comments, Parts Bradley says, many cameras emit infrared light. There are apps for phones that can help you discover these lights. Plus, you may want to seek a counselor because this is a traumatic experience and paranoia can be debilitating if not treated. Best of luck to you. The phone camera plus a bit of smoke. Don't use a smoke bomb. There's cans of smoke like you can get from a smoke machine. That'll do the trick. Please go to the police and lodge a report. You need to create a paper trail in case this escalates. You often need multiple incidents on record before the police will do anything. Consider getting some Nest cameras to record the area outside and around your front door and bedroom window. Just because it is stopped doesn't mean that he might not start up again. Take a few proactive steps now to protect yourself just in case. Be safe, OP. So, because you have a uterus, you can't tell the difference between a van and a truck? Honestly, I would argue for breaking up with someone for this alone, because even that stupid statement does not bode well for the future. These men, they actually think our sex hormones make us blind to vehicle shapes? Or are they just desperate, bad liars? Take your pick. Then they have the goal to get on social media and complain how no women want to date them. Good for you. Be safe. Yeah, I guess my take in a way is that this is good that they have broken up, but I am still anxious for OP in this situation, in that I feel like they should have got undeniable evidence that he was stalking her in the first place, so that if it did continue in the future, like it likely will now, in my opinion, that the police can go and do something about it because they know for a fact that it's him and he is dangerous. To me, this kind of just leaves the door open for escalations of stalking in the future, with the situation as it was being a he said, she said, as opposed to, yeah, I have actual evidence that it was him, he's dangerous, please give me a restraining order, please do something about him. I don't know the answer, but I hope that that is where the story ends and he leaves you alone, OP. Am I the asshole for expecting equal treatment for my kids? My mother-in-law lives less than 10 minutes down the road from me. At first, I was so happy. She and my eldest son had a great bond. She would have him over to spend the night once every few months. I had twin newborns at home. Once they got older, she would take them one kid at a time to do activities about once a month or so. I thought she was doing what she could to help me. I was grateful. Then my sister-in-law had a baby. My kids only exist on holidays now. All of a sudden, my mother-in-law is over at my sister-in-law's house, cleaning, gardening, and babysitting if her daughter wants to do literally anything. She's cooking for them, bringing them treats, and inviting them over to have pizza and movie nights. My sister-in-law works, I'm a stay-at-home homeschooling mom, and I run a small business. I watched my nephew and then niece, once she was born, from said sister-in-law during the shift overlap of my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, until I asked to get paid, and then I was fired. My mother-in-law started to get Thursdays off at her work, so she invited my sister-in-law over from the moment she wakes up to spend the whole day over there as free babysitting. She gets to nap, and she gets to eat lunch and dinner there, and gets a lunch packed for her night shift job. They call it Grandma Day. After 4 years, my now 4 kids are wondering why only their cousins get Grandma Day. My husband and I talked. It really bothers him that his mother treats his sister like a princess, but treats him like he only exists if he can do something for her. We agreed to give her one last chance and to spread it all out for her to see our side. We've tried before, but she always changes the conversation. We tell her about the kids asking about having a Grandma Day. She looks aghast. Says she has no more time to give. I said I'm not asking for an additional day, but that my kids love her and we could go every other week and take turns. She shuts me down right away, says she's probably not going to do Grandma Day anyway as she's getting too busy. This was Easter, not one Grandma Day has been missed except for vacation, which she went with them on to babysit. She was disgusted that I asked, but I don't think it's fair to my kids. I'm not asking even half of what she's freely offering to my sister-in-law. I feel like she's punishing me and my kids for being a stay-at-home mom. My choice, my consequence. But my sister-in-law works. Shouldn't that be her choice, her consequence? Now they, my mother-in-law, her 2 daughters, and my brother-in-law, are all treating us like we were being the assholes for asking. Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with this one, OP. And you know what? You're completely right. She very obviously has a golden child. She continues to die on that hill. I more than understand why you want things to change and why it would be fair that way, but she doesn't view you guys like she does this family. A lot of people are just like that, and it's up to you how you proceed going forward with this woman. In my unprofessional opinion, I'd think just very low contact is the way to go, and just keep them out of sight, out of mind. Move on with your own life with your family. That seems to be much more important. Though that's not a good solution for the kids. You're kind of screwed either way. Not the asshole. In the comments, LB1076 says, "Not the asshole for asking, and now you have your answer. As a grandchild who was thrown away when the daughter's kids came back, please do your kids a favor and start pulling them away. Seeing your cousins get all sorts of attention while you sit wondering why is a sad way to spend your childhood. Find an adopt-a-grandparent program locally and sign up. My best memories were made with older people who were grandparents by choice." I like the idea of adopting a grandparent. Win-win. There will, of course, be some BS from your mother-in-law, but why are you meeting with strangers? Your children already have a grandma. Well, they do? Where is she? This lovely old doll wants to give us 3 grandma days with an option for more. You refuse to even give them one, so we sought grannies elsewhere. You're just not up to our expectations, so I'm afraid you're fired. You're fired. Obama, you're fired. Frickin' bye, you wretched old fool. Okay, maybe not that mean. I'm a little riled up at the thought of someone playing favorites with children. Not the asshole. I would go no contact with grandma and try and move far, far away. It's going to cause lifelong issues for your kids, wondering why grandma doesn't love them. Always protect your kids at all costs. Clearly your sister-in-law is the golden child and your husband is not. So, by extension, sister-in-law's children are the golden grandchildren. Talk to your kids about the hazards of one-sided relationships as their age permits and distance yourself. She's not going to change, and it sounds like you and your husband tried, so don't let her hurt your kids. P.S. Your husband needs to be busy when she wants favors. Update. Wow, it's been a while, and so much has happened. I'll try to give it a quick breakdown. 1. I stopped posting hardly anything on social media because my sister-in-laws would text or call my husband within a day of my posting, reading into things, saying I was trashing his mother or them. I wasn't. I couldn't even post about what we did as a family on the weekends. They knew my husband doesn't have social media, and it felt like they were trying to turn him against me. Sorry guys, didn't work. 2. I was so stressed out, my doctor believes it caused me to have a small stroke last year when their lives were at a peak. I'm okay now, but it was scary at the time. 3. Even though we knew that it would be hard, when my husband's sister flew in from out of state, we spent a significant amount of time with his family so the kids could see their aunt. My therapist gave me several coping mechanisms to deal with them, mainly grey rocking, which helped a lot. I was treated fairly nice by mother-in-law starting a few days before my sister-in-law flew in. She was on her best behavior. I'm guessing so that I would keep my mouth shut during her visit. My children had only seen her at most 3 times since the Easter conversation. No apology, no attempt to share Grandma Day with my children. 4. The visit was awful. My local sister-in-law was so completely rude and unkind. The last day when I got home, I got the kids doing something and I made it to the room and I broke down and cried. My husband, who had to work 3rd shift this whole time, woke up and comforted me. He didn't want to even go and say his goodbyes to his sister-in-law that night because of their collective behavior. But I told him that it was just one more piece of ammunition they would use against us, so we went. 5. About a month later, I wrote an unrelated caption on a picture about how healing hurts. Nothing personal, just how when you grow, you see things a bit clearer and how it can hurt, but that it's worth it in the end. My husband's sister, who lives far away, started texting him and I the next day about how that's a slam to their mother. I had never once said anything bad about my mother-in-law to anyone. The most I ever did was post anonymously here on Reddit or talk to my husband, so guilty consciences read into it. My husband brought up how he agreed with my post and that he felt the same way. She went nuclear. That conversation ended their relationship. In this time, they saw my Reddit page because I wasn't hiding anything and wanted her to know our side, seeing as she had only heard one side. She took my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's side. Baffling, I know. 6. Thanksgiving is cancelled, lol. My husband gets a text from his mum that she was cancelling Thanksgiving. He called her bluff and said she didn't have to cancel, just to hide the fact that she would still have her golden child and her family over. We just wouldn't come. We had a small family Thanksgiving, and our 14-year-old said that it was his favorite Thanksgiving ever. We didn't attend Christmas either. 7. The smoke settles. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had gotten an opportunity to apply to a new job within the same company that he works for. He had gotten several before, but he says this one just felt different. He comes home and rocks my world. This job comes with moving several states away. Never once did I ever see him moving out of state, ever. This is the man that bought a plow truck just so he could plow his mum and sister's driveways. This is the man who would let his brother-in-law work on his sister's truck in his garage and park outside for up to a week, all because they never ordered the part they knew they needed before they started taking it apart. This is the man who chopped wood every single year for them, but we never had a wood-burning stove. 8. He applied and got a great offer. We decided that we needed to visit the area before we made the decision. On our way out there, his sister called, screaming and yelling at him about moving. She's a bit more controlling if you haven't picked that up by now, and she saw him slipping through her fingers. The kids were in the vehicle with us and could hear everything, even though it wasn't on speakerphone and we were driving a loud diesel. My husband ended the call. 9. We loved the area. The kids said they didn't even want to go back home. My husband and I talked extensively about the pros and cons. Never once did my in-laws enter the equation. In the end, I told him that it was his decision and that I would make it work no matter what he felt was right. He accepted and we went home. 10. My husband told his mother the day after we got home. She already knew from sister-in-law, but he had to officially tell her himself. Told her that we had several months to get our house ready to sell and that he would like for her to visit us out there. She said okay. Over the next few months, she stopped over like 3 times for a few minutes at a time because she was driving by and saw us out there. She dropped off our Christmas presents so that we could take them with us, proving to my husband that she has never had any intention on ever coming to see and support him. 11. I am banned from sister-in-law's house because this is all my fault. She then invited my whole household to my niece's birthday party except for me. This is the niece and nephew that I used to watch for free for 3 years until I asked to be paid and then was fired. My husband put the invitation on the fridge so that our kids could see how petty their aunt was being. She had the audacity to text him for an RSVP, and he told her that if I wasn't invited, then none of us were invited. 12. We list our house. Sister-in-law is pissed at the price, as my husband informs me, thinking it's way too high. We sell it for even more, lol. 13. We have a going away party. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law show up just to save face. It was so comical seeing them try to pretend they don't know anything about what we've been doing or what our plans are. People noticed and commented. The kids gave them quick hugs when they left. No tears were shed. My mother-in-law had the audacity to hug my husband and say, "You know I don't play favorites," as her goodbye. 14. We move several states away and are so happy. In the comments, Winterworld561 says, "Glad things are working out for you. Why did you even have any of them on social media? Why didn't you just block them so they couldn't see your posts? Simple fix right there. I wish you a very happy, stress-free life with your lovely family." OP replies, "Simply put, I didn't have anything to hide. I wasn't in the wrong. Then when they unfriended me, they still had their spies reporting back. Once that was thrown in my face, I did a purge." Well then, that's fair enough. It sounds like they would just jump on anything you said and completely turned it into something else. Kind of unrelated to the main story, but there are a few things that I hate more than vague booking, or whatever they call it now that people aren't using Facebook as much. Especially when afterwards they deny everything and suggest that it was nothing personal instead of the shot at someone that it clearly is. You're so vain, you probably think this song is about you. Personally, I've seen both sides of the situation regarding people like this, posting motivational quotes on social media, and the track record makes me default that they are an unreliable narrator. My experience is that they're always the victim, and they change a lot of the narrative. The only thing I can believe in this post is that both sides wanted and needed to separate, but neither wanted to do it because family. Another sign is when she said they yelled at her, were horrible to her, but without saying what was said and done. Our next post is by a throwaway account titled, "Am I the asshole for keeping my wife on a short leash after she cheated on me? My 30 male, wife, 31 female of 5 years cheated on me last year with her friend when she was out with her friend group. She used to do this often, but always came back at around 12 a.m. But this time, she came home very late, at around 5 a.m., and drunk, and I didn't push the issue that night. She was distant and didn't talk much to me afterwards the next few days. I only found out a couple of days later when she confessed to cheating after I kept asking her why she was so cold to me. I was shocked. I never liked the fact that she went out to bars and clubs, but she never gave me a reason to distrust her until that night. I immediately grabbed a bag, packed some stuff, and left. She was begging me to talk about it, but I wasn't in the mood for it. I was angry, upset, sad. I know that I wasn't in the right headspace for this kind of talk, so I stayed with a friend. Fast forward a few days later, and I agreed to talk to her. She said she was so sorry and it would never happen again, and that she would do anything to make me stay. I spent the time that I was away thinking of staying or leaving, and I hate the fact that I still love her. We don't have kids together, but part of me still wanted to stay. I gave her conditions if she wanted me to stay. The first one is to never see the man she cheated on me with ever again. The second was that I could see her phone or computer anytime that I wanted without having to ask. The last one was that she could no longer go out to bars or clubs without me. She agreed to all of this. Over the last year, she's been estranged from her friend group because she can't go out with them without seeing the man she cheated on me with, and she hasn't really made any new friends. I haven't checked her phone or computer either. I know she likes going out, so I try my best to go with her when I have time. The bar and club scene was never my thing, but I try to enjoy it with her. Things just haven't been the same as before, and I've thought about loosening the "she can't go out without me" rule, but I keep thinking of what she did. I've explained this to my friend, and she said that I should just divorce her if I can't trust her anymore. I've thought about it. I wasn't as happy as I used to be. She says she's happy with me around, but she isn't as energetic as she used to be. So, am I the asshole? OP, I don't know if you should be asking if you're the asshole here. I think the question should be, should I just break up with her? Which, yes. And if you don't break up with her, you're just being an asshole to yourself because it's very obvious that you two are no longer compatible and you two are no longer happy to be with each other anymore. The best time to divorce was when she cheated. The second best time is right now. If it's not going to improve, why continue? Not the asshole. In the comments, Electronic Fox says, "Sorry, but your friend is right. Sounds like all trust is gone and you're just diminishing each other now. Let her go. Not the asshole." This, straight up, this is a simple problem with a simple solution. Roll out while you're still young. Last thing you want to do is have a kid with someone you obviously resent and don't love anymore. The only thing that's difficult with these situations is accepting this simple solution. You'll need to divorce. You both are on different pages for where you are in life. No point trying to dictate what to do any further. That was my thought too. Cheating is awful, but the real relationship killer here is that they want different lifestyles. I'm pretty sure the real killer was the cheating, but the lifestyle differences don't help. Trust is everything in a marriage. When it's gone, it's gone. This is not the exception, this is the rule. It's been a year. Are you or her any happier than before? Do you feel like you have to look over her shoulder? If so, then it's more detrimental to your mental health than a divorce ever would be. At least with a divorce, you have a direction and boundaries. Now you're having to enforce the boundaries. Not the asshole. Your friend is right though. No kids, the relationship has changed, and she's 30 and still clubbing? Personally, I'm way the F out. You're fired. Update. Thank you all for responding. It was a little overwhelming how much attention this post got. To clarify some things that were asked, our relationship before seemed pretty good. I was never the club and bar kind of person, but my wife and I enjoyed going out to different places. We were both very outdoorsy. We were often camping, climbing, hiking, among a lot of other things. We also liked taking trips around the country and sometimes abroad. We also had date nights once or twice a week. We both work from home, so we often had a good amount of free time. We aren't rich or anything, but we do fine. Also, to clarify something, we don't have kids and we don't want kids. When it came to our sex life, I think it was decent. We had sex 3 to 4 times a week and often tried new things. Never with another person though. The only thing we didn't share was her habit of going out to bars and clubs. And now to her friends. Some of you were under the impression that I told her to see none of her friends. I only told her to stop seeing the man that she cheated with. At first, I didn't know exactly why she became estranged with the whole group. They were all a part of the one friend group. I met all of her friends, including the man in question, and from what I know about him, he was a man whore. Nothing happened between him and my wife before, but I never liked the fact that she went out so often with this guy, even if it was in a group setting, especially with alcohol involved. I did bring this up to her, and she told me there was nothing to worry about, and that this was just insecurity talking. Our relationship now. We've gone out hiking a few times and gone out together on dates, but not nearly as often anymore. I just haven't felt the desire to. Our sex life is pretty barren as well. She's tried to initiate plenty of times, but I rarely want to. Update. I've talked to my wife, and we both reflected on our relationship. She still claims that she wants to stay with me and would respect my conditions no matter what. I asked her what she would do if I let go of the conditions. She told me she's truly ashamed of what happened, and she said she probably wouldn't go to the club or bar alone anymore. I asked her about her old friends, and she told me that she doesn't want to be their friend anymore. She told me that they thought that she was being unreasonable for not wanting to see the guy anymore, and that's just how he is. Basically, they refused to cut the guy off, and they didn't like that my wife had a problem with him. I never asked her about this before because I didn't care about how my condition was met. All that I cared was that it was met. I've opened up a bit more, and how our life is now pretty dull. She said she's aware that our relationship isn't the way that it was before. I asked her if she wants things to change, but she said she doesn't feel that she has the right to ask me for anything. She said she's aware that it's her fault that our relationship is like this. I mentioned couples therapy, and she immediately said that it was a good idea. I still resent her, but from what I can tell, she does want to make this work. I can't fully trust her yet. I still remember when she first said that there was nothing to worry about. We decided to start couples therapy. I'll be honest though, the only reason I'm willing to do this is because she has followed my conditions for a year, but I don't think this is going to help me trust her ever again. If therapy doesn't work, then I'll leave. Am I the asshole for defending my husband after my ex-husband abandoned our children? I, 38 female, have a 9-year-old son Max and a 6-year-old daughter Olivia with my ex-husband Dan, 35 male. Max has severe autism and requires a lot of care. I remarried 3 years ago and my husband Luke is incredible. My ex, Dan, has them 6 hours every week. This week was on Tuesday, and as I was away for a funeral, Dan took the day off work to be with them in the morning and in the evening. X and his girlfriend Sophie picked them up as planned at 11 a.m. My husband took this time to play a round of golf with my brother. They finished the game at 4 p.m., and the golf is 30 minutes from our house. I got a call at 5 p.m. exactly from Sophie screaming at me about abandoning my kids. I was confused and eventually realized Luke wasn't home yet, so I told her where the spare key is so they could wait for Luke to come home inside. Unfortunately, Luke's car had gone kaboom on the motorway and he was in a complete coverage dead zone. He was able to call emergency services, but nothing else would connect. When the police arrived, the first thing he did was ask if someone could contact Dan to tell him what had happened. Sophie was already on the phone to the police to report me and my husband for child abandonment. They said one of us should have been there and my ex doesn't feel safe inside our home. So they've left the kids inside of our home and that the police needed to go and save our kids and arrest us. The police person speaking to them told them multiple times to turn around and that they were the ones who had abandoned them. This whole time I'm getting messages from Dan saying how this was unfair on him and Sophie and that I'm a terrible parent for leaving them with someone who doesn't give a shit about our kids. At this point, I didn't actually know what was going on. All I knew is that Luke wasn't home, but Dan had found the spare key. At no point did he tell me that they'd left the kids alone. Luke got a hold of me via the police, and I arranged for a friend to go round there as soon as he could, but the police already had a unit there after the call with Sophie. After this incident, I decided to try to get his 6 hours a week taken away. I've given him so much leeway over the years, and this was my limit. Our son is dependent on an adult, and our daughter is 6, and the only thing he would say to defend himself is, well, I kept up my side of the agreement by bringing them back after 6 hours. This caused a whole other shitstorm, to the point where Sophie sent me messages that the police are now investigating. Dan hinted he's going to try and get the kids taken into care because of my husband abandoning them. I had multiple people ask me why I'm staying with someone who abandoned my children. His parents have threatened to try and gain custody of the children, saying the children need a stable family unit and calling my husband abusive. I said F this and put the whole story with evidence on my private Facebook page, and people quickly understood. But now I'm being branded a drama queen and an asshole for publicly blasting the father of my children, putting my husband above my kids. I don't understand how. He's more of a father to them than Dan is. I feel like I've taken crazy pills. Am I the asshole? It's so funny how they just shift the goalposts as soon as you provide receipts and genuine evidence that you aren't the problem and that these dickheads are the ones that caused this mess. Wait a second, you weren't supposed to do that. You were supposed to keep quiet and let us continue spinning lies. You're a drama queen, and now you're an asshole for publicly blasting, giving evidence against this dickhead, father of my children. You know what? This evidence that you've just presented to the public proves to me that you're just putting your husband above our kids, that your husband is just the centerpiece of your life. I actually don't understand why they believe that. My brain genuinely cannot comprehend how any of this is putting their husband above the kids. But regardless, I feel like I'm being gaslit by these people. You're not the asshole, OP. In the comments, someone asks, did you mean the police investigating you or Sophie? And OP replies, I worded it badly in the post. Sophie sent me messages, and the police are now investigating those messages. Said some horrendous stuff about my kids, and even worse stuff about me. Hopefully enough for me to prevent her from ever being near my kids again. More info on the police involvement. OP says, I won't speak too much on the police involvement, but I will say they won't be investigating them being left alone. That's being handled by a more appropriate service. I made the report about the text she sent, and they are treating this as an ongoing pattern of behavior rather than a one-time event. I'm not entirely sure what they meant by that, but I think they'll consider other stuff that has happened and lump it all together. I'm speaking to an officer on Monday. In response to someone saying you shouldn't eliminate their father from their life, OP says, we're going to have to politely disagree here. He left them alone in a house and refused to go back even after the police told him he had to because they weren't his responsibility beyond that time. If that's not evidence that they're safer without him, I don't know what is. He chose this path, not me. Quote, they don't get to choose who their father is, and OP says, you're almost correct. They don't get to choose who their biological father is. Another commenter says, I'd urge you to hold off on your decision until some time has passed. You want your decision to be well thought out and not reactionary after all. And OP says, it's been 3 days. Assigning my very rightful anger about my severely autistic child and a 6-year-old sister being abandoned to being upset is demeaning and dismissive. How many times is an appropriate number of genuine child endangerment before taking action appropriate in your world? This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't something he regrets. He still thinks that he did nothing wrong. Also, the fact you're just assuming I'm making a reactionary decision and jumping to no contact on something as serious as the contact my children have with their father, that's patronizing AF. As for any other behavior in the past, he has 6 hours a week for a reason. I won't be going into our history, as it's not required here. Someone else says, I can't believe they called the police to tattle on themselves. And OP replies, I don't believe this part of the story. It's why it's not in this post, but Luke swears it's true. I think he's exaggerating it slightly. After he asked the police officer to get someone to contact Dan, they came back and told him about the call from Sophie based on the address given, and how someone at HQ was trying to tell them to go back to the kids, and said, "I've dealt with some real bright sparks in my time, but that's a unique kind of dumb." Did your ex mean he was going to try to take the kids, or that they'd go to foster care? And OP replies, "He recently moved into Sophie's place, and I remember hearing something about a cold day in hell before she lets them sleep there overnight. For all his many faults, he's self-aware enough to know that he can't look after them. He meant taken into foster care, his parents meant into their care." Someone says, "Block Sophie," and OP says, "She's muted. Police said that I could block her, but they're looking into her actions being harassment, so ongoing messages are very helpful to that." What did Sophie say in the messages? OP replies, "About me, she said I was a shit parent, accused me of neglect, said my car might have an accident, threatened to fight me, accused me of cheating on my ex with Luke, despite him living on a different continent at the time. Just unhinged shit. I've had stuff from her in the past, but never to this level. I won't go into what she said about my kids." Update. That happened a week ago. Post was made a few days after it happened. The post I made on social media had kicked up quite the fuss, but most things have been sorted. For now. And my post is still up telling people what happened. My brother Pete was friends with my ex-husband before we ever got together. He also never really got involved in our relationship or separation. He's never really been involved in my life beyond being a good uncle. He's a nice guy, but we've never been that close. He's always been closer to my ex, and now with my husband. When he found out what happened, that completely changed, and he put himself right in the middle of it all. My brother was always the beta in his friendship with Dan. I always suspected he was scared of him. Well, not anymore. He called Dan and ordered him to meet him at Dan's parents, who he knows quite well. Dan was advised that bringing Sophie to this meeting wouldn't end well for him. I don't know exactly what was said, but the result of their conversation is that Dan's parents are going no contact with him. I don't like them, they've never liked me, but I've never doubted they loved my kids and would protect them with their lives. Pete did tell me that Dan made it clear he wouldn't break up with Sophie under any circumstances, even if it meant that he wouldn't be able to see his kids. Pete explained what happened to my ex-in-laws, that the version of events I posted was true, and went through the timeline/proof. Dan argued and bitched and moaned until his dad told him to leave. I think the fact that my brother, who was known for caring about beer, women, and sports, and nothing else, took this so seriously got the grandparents to wake up. I spoke to them, and although their apology was barely worth hearing, we came to an understanding. I'm not going to allow any visits or contact between Dan and Sophie and my children going forward. Our agreement was informal, no court orders or anything. If he wants to see them, he will have to fight for it, which I know he won't. Those 6 hours a week are now going to be with his parents, on the condition that if they allow Dan to be around the kids even once, they will be cut off from our lives. They were fine with this. Today came and he picked the kids up and spent the day with them. They called me after 5 hours and asked if they could bring them back an hour later than planned. They were having a lot of fun painting, and the kids wanted to finish what they were doing. No problem. Thanks for checking. I cannot stress enough how much I dislike them, but knowing my kids are with people who want to be with them is such a good feeling. Dan didn't even text me asking if he was going to have his scheduled time today. I spoke to a police officer yesterday about the messages sent to me by Sophie. I'm going to gloss over some details for reasons, but they are moving forward with an investigation. There is a continued pattern of behavior, and it has been escalating. She's made some very specific threats, and over the weekend sent me a message that contained information she would only know if she had followed me to where I was at the time. Luke has set up external cameras on our house, including making sure our cars are covered by cameras at all times. Our neighbors know what happened last week, so they're going to keep a lookout for her as well. I feel awful that I let this person be around my kids for almost a year. I let her be around them, but didn't know her well enough to spot she was capable of behavior like this. I spoke to Olivia to ask what she thought of Sophie, and she said she was grumpy and not fun, but nothing to indicate she hurt them or anything. This reaction to the whole situation is just unhinged. Luke has been a star throughout this. He's resisted the very strong urge to find Dan and beat him with a golf club. He's not worth replacing a driver. And make sure the kids know that he loves spending time with them. Olivia calls him daddy anyway, but she knew she was abandoned last week, and he's shown her that he is here for her. He's always loved Max and been amazing with him, but I know he's found it difficult to connect. He asked for advice, and I told him just to try things that he enjoys and see if Max engages. Well, Max spent 5 hours on Sunday with a golf putter in his hand, hitting a ball to the putting machine thing that Luke has in the garage, and apparently he's a natural. Luke now has it outside, as Max became automatic in the garage and needed a bigger green. So, I'm now reevaluating my life. Living with 1 golf obsessive was barely manageable, 2 may be more than I can endure. I'm currently typing this looking at Olivia's painting of a birthday cake. Deranged threats aside, I'm happy with how things are right now. In the comments, Stray's mum says, "I'm glad things are smoothing out. Sophie sounds like a real winner. Are the police going to do anything about Sophie? It kind of sounds like they're waiting for her to hang herself with all these threats. And what about Dan? Are Sophie and him being charged with child abandonment?" OP replies, "The police are actively investigating and taking steps regarding Sophie. They have more than enough information to move forward, just a matter of going through the processes now. I don't know how the system works, but I believe there will be an arrest soon. And no, they aren't charging with child abandonment, but that issue is being looked at along with the bullshit with Sophie. I don't know what the plan is from the police beyond they have all the information. They're just focusing on the immediacy of her threats rather than what happened last week. I hope Sophie hasn't escalated more since this post and that your kids are safe. I've been fearing that she'll do something to you in front of your kids or to your kids." And OP says, "Everything's good. She's stopped contacting me, and no one else has heard from either of them in over a week." Update 2. Since my previous posts, everything has mostly been resolved. I didn't go into detail at the time, but a lot of what Sophie was sending me was accusing me of sexual infidelity, and had told a lot of people that I was someone who effed other women's men. I thought she was accusing me of cheating on my ex with my now husband, but we'll come back to this in a bit. She directed people to message me from public posts on her Facebook. One person turned up at my door to shout abuse at me, and because of this and other stuff she did, I reported her to the police, and they opened a case of harassment. I spoke to a lovely officer who took all of the evidence I had, and a week later she was arrested and interviewed. Her phone and computer were seized, and she was released with bail conditions to not contact me directly or indirectly. I was told there was not enough evidence to support a prosecution, but at that stage, I just wanted to move on and be done with it. Dragging it through court for God knows how long seemed such a daunting and horrible future, so the police didn't move forward with prosecution and filed it with no further action, meaning the bail conditions would no longer apply the moment that it was filed. I was told this would happen after review from somebody that wasn't the officer dealing with it, which would be between 1 to 7 days, and I would be told when that was completed. I'm not 100% sure in the specifics and legalities of this paragraph, it's just how it was explained to me. I wasn't directly involved in any of it. This was communicated to her, and being the bright spark she is, she immediately messaged my brother something along the lines of his sister being a WHORE and a waste of policed time. The bail conditions were still in place. He reported this to the police, not knowing I wasn't going forward with the whole case. Turns out that where I live, breach of bail conditions is a crime against the government, not the person they were in place to protect. I have no knowledge of what's going on with that, but I'm led to believe that she's in a bit of legal trouble. After she was interviewed, I was informed of what was said about all of this to the police, bringing everything full circle to the original incident that led to all of this. Turns out Sophie and my ex were in a relationship for almost 2 years while we were still married, with it ending around the time my 6-year-old daughter was born, and then reconnected in the last year or so. I had no clue this happened. I'm actually weirdly impressed that he hid it so well. Sophie was under the impression we split up a year into their relationship and didn't know that we had a son while they were together. When they reconnected, he told her we had 2 kids, which she wasn't happy about, but forgave him. The thing is, my ex told her that my daughter is 8. She is 6. He was covering up lying to her all those years ago about separating from me. I guess this was easier than telling her that not only were we together for the 2nd year of their relationship, but we had a child in that time. I don't know what his long-term plan for this lie was. The day it all exploded, Olivia had corrected her about her age, and she realized that I had been having sex with her man while they were together all of those years ago, my then husband. She thinks the moment he told her we had split up, she went from being the other woman to the legitimate partner. I'll go to my grave not understanding that logic. Anyway, she hit the roof and refused to be around his love child anymore, which led to the whole issue at my house in the first post. Luckily, she didn't say any of this in front of Olivia. Dan is still with her. They can have each other. He's made it clear he has no interest in seeing either his legitimate child or his love child, which is fine. His parents have been incredible this entire time, helping with childcare to the point that I've been able to pick up more hours at work. We've gotten along much better since they've accepted that maybe all the bad things they heard about me weren't true. Still some bad blood there, but it's a much improved relationship, which is great for the kids because they love spending time with them both. The absolute worst part of this all is that Max, Luke, my brother Pete, my ex-father-in-law, and Pete's brother-in-law are now on a weird golfing crew. Max still only putts when they reach the hole, but he enjoys watching the others play the full game. Golf isn't played in the winter, is it? This ends soon, right? I'm gonna hear conversations about anything else by the end of November, surely. In the comments, GlassMotor9670 says, "No, winter means bright orange or pink balls, matron." Or they upsize the ones with holes poked in them and join bowling leagues that monopolize their time. Same goofy shoes and pants, bigger balls, and no clubs. Am I the only one hearing Luke cackling in the background and making plans to pull their daughter into this nonsense the moment she wants to see what all the fuss is about? All in order to finally bring OP into the fold so they can all golf as a family? OP replies, "We did a crazy golf day, all 4 of us. She hated it and spent the entire time doing handstands and rolling the ball with her hands as using the stick is stupid. It goes where I want when I do it this way. I am at no risk of losing her to golf, thank God." Ha! All his hopes and dreams dashed with a handstand. She'll break his heart and end up a Major League Baseball player, or play shot put in the Olympics. And as he claps for her victory, he'll sigh and remember that moment when she strayed from the goodness of golf forever. Ravenheaded says, "Even Simone Biles would be impressed with Sophie's mental gymnastics. How can the person who is literally married to the man have stolen him?" You would be surprised how often this happens. My dad had an affair for 8 years. It started just after my brother was born. When my mum was pregnant with my youngest sister 8 years later, she almost left him for cheating on her with his wife. Now they're living in Florida with 2 shattered families left behind. I've come to the conclusion that a good 25% of the human population is actually insane. It's true. I know someone who actively gets pissed when her affair partner does anything for his wife. I'm like, really? It just shows exactly how much they've twisted facts to rationalize cheating. They're the most important person in their affair partner's life and the one they really care about. So the spouse is being greedy and unreasonable. Yeah, you know what? I hope those 2 have the life they deserve together, because what twisted fiction is she living in, thinking that OP was cheating with her husband? I can't deal with that. What's wrong with people? Good riddance to that trash. And also, OP, as much as you don't like your in-laws, they do sound like great people for those kids. So, bit of a win-win situation there, honestly. So, trigger warning for this next one. Domestic violence mentioned and also unaliving. So, yeah, don't say I didn't warn you. Posted by user ThrowRA Pale, titled, I just found out, 25 female, that my fiancé, 27 male, I've been with for 5 years, was a monster in high school. I'm gonna type this fast. Excuse the grammar, he's back for lunch, and I don't want him to know anything yet. Okay guys, so I met my fiancé 5 years ago. I thought he was perfect. He's handsome, kind, funny, and has a stable job. He's a cop. He's just treated me so well since he stopped me for speeding and ended up with my number. Everything was so good looking back now that I should have seen the red flags, like his family and old friends joking about his temper and his high school bad boy days. And now I'm questioning, did my cat really run away, or did he make him? Anyway, I'm waffling, I'm babbling, so here's what happened. We had an engagement party in his hometown a few days ago, and I got a Facebook message now, long after, warning me about my fiancé, saying he was this monster in high school. So I thought, lol, this is someone trolling. But then as the day went on, 5 more people messaged me, one being his cousin. I asked his cousin for proof, because in my naive, dumb head, I thought this was a joke because my fiancé is an amazing person. He's a cop for God's sake, and his cousin told me to give him a few hours. Well, about 2 hours ago, my whole world turned upside down, and I was added to a group chat with multiple people with a lot of proof. I've seen videos, heard stories, and seen screenshots, and even a memorial page of one of his victims who unalived at 16 years old. Guys, this was horror movie level shit from threats, assault, both physical and sexual, lots of misogyny and homophobia, even one of him harming people's dogs while the kids screamed as my fiancé laughed. He looked about 18 in the video. The stories I heard both broke my heart and scared me, and I don't know what to do. Maybe he's changed? Should I confront him? Should I give him a chance to tell his side? Okay, I'll give more information now that I'm alone. I spoke to his cousin, and I asked why didn't they ever do anything since they have videos, and he said, "You haven't thought that we tried years ago? Life isn't a fairy tale. The bad guy doesn't always face justice. Your future in-laws and fiancé made sure everything always went away." And I then asked, why now tell me? And he was honest. They, him and the other victims, wanted to warn me out of both concern, but mostly revenge, because how dare he have a happy life after what he did to them? Which, fair. I asked, did he know if my fiancé ever did anything like anger management or therapy after high school? And he said he did, and I asked, does he think my fiancé changed? And while he said he isn't like his high school self anymore, people like him never truly change. I asked him if I decided to leave, would he help me, and he said he would, but we would need to make a plan that can't lead back to him for his safety. Update. Okay, I'll answer some things that y'all keep bringing up. I can't 100% say that he unalived my cat, because my cat liked to escape and wander around the neighborhood. People keep asking me why I didn't see any red flags in 5 years. I didn't notice them at the time, I guess. As for how we got together, people keep pointing out that that was a red flag. Well, look, I'm gonna be real here. At the time, I thought I was hot stuff because I talked my way out of a ticket, and he's really handsome, so I thought in my naive head it would be a cute story to tell our grandkids one day. I'm from a country where people don't fear cops like they do in America. Guys, he knows about this post. He just sent me this and he said that we need to talk. In the comments, Snoo Bananas says, there's actually a video of him deliberately harming a dog and laughing about it, and he taunted the dog's owner while harming the dog, and now you think that your fiancé got rid of your cat? Honestly, if I was in your situation, I would show my mum or my brother everything the cousin sent before making any decision. Do you have family that you can talk to? OP says, there was more videos than just the dog. I didn't want to get the post flagged by talking about them. There was a few of him bullying both physically and mentally, along with saying slurs against gay men. Your fiancé was comfortable to engage in these behaviors while being recorded. More than likely, there are worse things that he did that were not recorded. You may want to confront him, but you need to share this info with either your family or close friends. You need support and a plan before doing anything. Unfortunately, this is extremely common for these types of individuals to become police officers. You know cops have the highest domestic violence rates, right? Can I ask, have you ever made him mad or seen him mad? You better effing check that, ma'am, or you're gonna have a bad rest of your life. OP replies, he's yelled at me before over stupid stuff, but apologizes afterwards. And I've seen him get mad at other people for like normal stuff that anyone would get mad over, like a guy crashed into him and tried driving away, or a guy who wouldn't leave me alone at a bar. That's just the beginning. I bet he's so sweet after, right? Run. This is just the beginning. Update. I'm okay. Legs hurt from running, but I'm at a safe place with a trusted person, and I've talked to my fiancé by phone. I'll update later on our conversation and his side, because as of now, I don't want to give out much information that leads to my whereabouts, but I'll tell everyone how he found this post. I was too stupid not to change details, so someone we knew recognized it and sent him the post. I also found my passport, which in my panic I forgot I moved when I was reorganizing a few weeks ago, and he also admitted to giving my cat to a coworker, which until I see proof, I don't believe it. There's other stuff. In the comments, someone says, I wonder if, when he's at work, your friends or relatives can take the car, bring it to the mechanic and check for a tracker, then drive it on rural roads for half an hour, just to make sure he's not following the car and bring it to you. OP says, I'm going to Ireland for a while. I have no use for it now. Smotchy says, this is the scariest post I've come across on Reddit. OP, how is your fiancé behaving towards you after finding out? Is he verbally abusive or not? OP says, he was begging me to come back, but it sounded like he was holding back anger when asking about his cousin. He also said not to listen to anyone on here, because if I didn't mention his job, your advice would be different. Shout out to the cousin, he didn't have to warn her. And this cousin is in big trouble now. I will not be surprised if he suddenly gets arrested for having illegal drugs in his pocket, or CP on his computer, or dies in an accident because brake lines in his car failed. Also suddenly. I'm honestly pissed at OP for being specific enough to say that it was his cousin. She could have just said that it was a random person. That poor guy. OP sounds too naive and trusting to the point of being careless. She may be safe now, which is great, but yeah, what about that cousin who did her a solid? The cousin's probably ready for everything. I still worried for OP as the safety is most likely temporary. If she goes back to Ireland, she's probably safe from her ex. She's probably not safe from her own naivety though. I, 26 male, found her, 28 female, TikTok after we went out on a date. This is honestly not something I expected to post about, but here's the thing. I have known this woman for a while since we're in the same friend groups. She's a nice person, attractive, and honestly, I've always enjoyed my talks with her. A few weeks ago, I asked her out on a date. I figured if she says no, it's fine. But she actually agreed. We went on a date this past Saturday, and honestly, I thought it was awesome. We went out to dinner, had drinks, spent the rest of the night talking, and even took a walk on a walking bridge over the town's lake. It's not a big one. I dropped her off and was elated. I absolutely loved the night. However, that night when I went scrolling through TikTok on my bed, a post from her, I didn't follow her, nor knew she had a TikTok, appeared on my For You page. Essentially, she said in the post, getting ready for a date that I really don't want to go to. That was like a bucket of ice water being thrown on my head. I was so freaking happy, and I just found out she didn't even want to go on a date with me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying she has to want it, but please, let me know if that's the case. We don't need to go out. We can forget that I even asked her out. But doing this on the internet, it made me, I don't know, self-conscious. Not sure if that's the right word. Now I'm unsure about what to do. Should I tell her that I saw this or just forget about it? Honestly, it really hurt me, and I'm not really sure that I want to give this another try. I mean, she didn't want to go out with me in the first place, right? Yeah, that's a bit of a cringe from me, OP. I feel like if the vibe for you is that things are off and they're irredeemable, it's okay for you to, call it off. Though there are definitely those that will say, hey, just reach out, communicate with her, give her a chance to tell her story. Maybe this was just a long-winded joke. Who knows? Maybe you can salvage things. Though personally it does seem like a gigantic amount of disrespect your way, so your mileage may vary. In the comments, Naked Neve says, I'd comment on the post and ask if the date went well. Just because she didn't want to go doesn't mean that she didn't have a good time. I think all of us have been there, where we don't feel like socializing but it turns out okay or fun. Her not wanting to go may not be a judgment on the OP at all. Could simply be that they weren't in the mood for a date, which might actually be a compliment to OP that she was still willing to do it for OP anyhow. It's a low blow to post it on social media. People have feelings. She didn't give a shit about OP finding out, especially if they know each other from a friend group. Good human beings don't proceed like that. I'd say leave her be. If she asks why, then tell her that you saw her video. Simple as that. I just wouldn't ask her for a second date and let it be. Don't give her fuel for her TikTok. Just tell her that you don't think you're a good fit if she asks. I'd feel like a child dating somebody who airs their whole personal life on effing TikTok. Of all the apps too, yuck. Oh my god, fight with the boyfriend. You'll never guess what he said. Hey guys, van life mum here. My children are all grown up and don't speak to me anymore? Who could have seen this one coming? The thing for me would be this. Who on earth would post that on TikTok and why? The potential answers will tell you a lot. I would never want to be with someone that would find that an appropriate thing to post for so many reasons. My interest in such a person would disappear after seeing something like that, and I hope that you have the wherewithal to feel similarly. This woman is not worth it, and at least you discovered that quickly. Distance yourself if you know what's good for you. No point in causing any drama over it, and honestly, that might be something that she would enjoy. Update. Hello everyone. Some people have reached out to me through comments or chat asking for an update on the situation. Sadly, there isn't much to share at the moment, but I'll provide what I can. Please keep in mind that I won't be discussing this further, nor will I reply to comments. Thank you for your understanding. After last week's post, I read almost every comment, or at least most of them. I'm thankful to all of those who commented and shared a bit of their own personal story. Some people mentioned the anxiety is normal, and feeling like not going out is definitely common, suggesting that I shouldn't look too much into it. While I agree with their perspective, and see no fault in feeling like going out, what bothered me the most in this situation was having to post a TikTok for a significant audition. I'm guessing audience. I'm a private person by nature, and even my social media accounts, like Instagram, have only a single post. I don't really like to overtly share, nor do I want to be with someone who does. It's completely fine to share whatever you want, I just don't want to be a part of it. So I decided not to contact her. I chose to pretend that I had never seen the post and let things be. I understand a lot of people might think that this isn't the best choice, but I feel it's the best course for the both of us. Last Thursday, a few friends who happen to know her invited me out for drinks. We went to a bar, and while we were eating and enjoying our drinks, a mutual friend asked me how our date went, as our circle was aware that we were going on a date. I didn't want to say much, so I just replied, "Oh, it was good, but I don't think we clicked." The friend followed it by saying, "We figured," which made me feel rather uneasy. When I asked what he was talking about, he hesitated, but eventually said that they had seen a TikTok post about her not wanting to go out. At this point, I didn't really know what to say. This situation is just incredibly messy for me, but there's not much that I can do about it. Still, I wasn't going to mention it, nor did I try to look up if there was any update on her part. In fact, I deleted TikTok after that incident. It just wasn't doing me any good. Nevertheless, this past Saturday she sent me a text. She mentioned that she enjoyed our date and asked if I wanted to go out again. I understand that she clearly stated that she enjoyed our time together. However, I don't want to be with someone who exposes so much of their personal life. It's not something that would be good for me. So I decided to tell her the truth and sent her a text explaining that while I absolutely enjoyed our date, her company, and that I thought that she was an amazing woman, her post from the night of our date came across my For You page on TikTok, and it made me feel really self-conscious. While I understand that she enjoyed the date, contrary to what she felt at the time of the post, I didn't feel comfortable going out with someone who had such a high level of exposure online. I wished her the best and expressed hope that she finds someone whose lifestyle aligns with hers. She has read the message and left me on read ever since. I don't think she'll reply, and I don't think we'll have a lot of social interaction going forward. I'm sorry if this wasn't the update that you guys were expecting, but yeah, sadly, that's what the situation became. Anyhow, wish everyone a good day. And you know what, OP? More power to you. Honestly, if that is a boundary, if that is something that's not something that you want, I can definitely see where you're coming from. She's a 10, but every time I sneeze, she makes a TikTok about it. Why can't she mind her own business? You know what, maybe she's gonna see this post, and then she's gonna read it out on TikTok, and then react to it as well. That'd be really epic. But yeah, really, at the end of the day, I think you did the best you could, and you were as respectful as you could have been. And on top of that, you didn't give her any more ammunition for more TikToks, besides these posts. But come on, she's not Marky, she doesn't read Reddit, let's be real. In the comments, VanMan32 says, I was late to the party on the last post you made. I think what you did was right. You gave your explanation in a way that she couldn't really milk it for content. If she did use your response for content, she would have been shat on so hard and labeled a shitty person. Hopefully this is a good lesson for her going forward. OP, contrary to what you may think, you got the message through to her loud and clear. I feel so sorry for people dating in the era of ever-present social media. It just ruins everything it touches. I love that he basically, in a nice way, told her, no thanks, because a woman like her doesn't deserve a guy who seems to be as mature and honest as OP. In fact, from my experience, many relationship-worthy women would prefer that their men don't even use social media, so OP is clearly one of those few who eventually will find a girl who is just like him when it comes to social media. To me, one of the biggest red flags when dating is if she's heavy into social media. If so, then I just simply pass. It's highly important to a healthy relationship in my opinion. No, she's gotta be just like me, for real. The part where his friends had also seen the post is what makes it gross and kind of sad. Someone making it publicly known that they're just so not looking forward to going out with you, and your friend group being exposed to that? Blech. Exactly. Especially with no follow-up that says, yes, I was nervous about going, thought that it was going to be awkward, but it was great. We had a lovely conversation. Who wants to be with someone who puts their disapproval with you out for all to see, but withholds their approval? She gives me the ick. I really don't like how social media has become so present inside dating. Heck, if someone had made a TikTok like that about me, I won't even want to date for a long time, and my confidence would fly away. On a side note, OP really handled this pretty well and made the right decision. I hope OP has a better chance on finding a better date. The thing is that almost nothing is true online these days. She might have just used it as an opportunity to make a viral TikTok, but yeah, really silly. Yup. I'd bet she was actually looking forward to the date, but thought the TikTok would gain more attention and be more relatable if she took an, don't want to go out stance. OP and her friends seeing it probably didn't even cross her mind. Glad I grew up in a day and age where every single one of my thoughts went onto Facebook, up until 2012. Yeah, that was really healthy, and now I get memories and reminders of that 10 years later. At least my cringe was confined to my profile and didn't get signal boosted to hundreds of millions of people online. Our next post is by user PrettyAnalysis6860, titled, My 24 Female Mum is Nosy. I recently got married in late September of this year to my husband, 28 male. Last year, we moved in together when I got engaged. My husband bought a house in the US, while my parents live in Japan. My mum has been staying with us since the wedding because it's her first time in our home, and she wants us to all fly back together to Japan for winter holidays in November. My mom has always been a very controlling person throughout my life. For some background to explain her personality, she's always had high expectations from me, very hypercritical of my looks, academics, talents, forced me into ballet as a child, and then essentially admonished me for not having the idealistic slender body of a ballerina. I have a narrow upper body, but a curvier lower body with naturally wide hips. Anatomy which cannot be changed with any diet, but she would still try to starve me because my shape was unbecoming for a ballerina. She would not let me play in the sun or join sports. She would not let me cut my hair. I could not hang out with my friends after school, extra tutoring, extracurriculars, strict routines. If I upset her in any way, she would smack me on the palms of my hands until they were raw. I could have a fever and be at home from school, and she would still come into my room and sit on my bed to make me study. Even if I was delirious, I had to stay conscious, participate, and provide the right answers. I had a rough upbringing, to say the least. Anyway, I've largely addressed most of these things as I've grown up and independent of her, but a few things remain as ongoing struggles. She is incredibly nosy and still tries to critique my life and all of my decisions. My husband is Japanese, Korean, and American mix. When she first saw a photo of him, she was swooning, but as soon as I told her his background, she had a problem about his race. She said such horrible things, some of which still echo in my mind today. I have a better relationship with my dad, but my dad is very submissive when it comes to my mom. My husband is the only person who can control my mom. He is very assertive and blunt. He has an intimidating aura and is unfortunately the only person who can put her in her place. To find her way around this, now my mom waits until he is out of the house to come for me. Ever since she's been living here, I feel like prey in my own home. She's been snooping around the house and did a lot of it while we were gone on our honeymoon. We have a detached garage next to the house. My husband uses the main floor garage, and upstairs he converted it into an art studio for me. My mum has gone through my studio and looked through all my journals and sketchbooks. She has gone through our closet, my clothes, my lingerie, personal items, jewelry, and most recently my corn drawer. I basically have a drawer in our closet which I keep all that stuff. We put a lock on it for obvious reasons. She started degrading me about it. I was so upset that I was streaming with tears. It was only when I threatened to tell my husband did she admit that it took her several days, but she eventually found the key. When she does these invasions of privacy, she won't admit to them, but I'll know she has seen something private of mine that she doesn't like because she will not so subtly hint her disapproval. It will show in her attitude, general vibe, that she is displeased. And then she'll poke me over and over again to force me to play a twisted guessing game with her. It is nauseating and painful. I know she's my mum. I will love and take care of her no matter what. She has her good moments too, but her personality is so exhausting. I am sure that my dad is having a great time in Japan living alone while she's with us here. I feel so guilty about it, but I look forward to having space from her again. I'm counting down the days. When I see other people and their closeness to their mums, I can't relate. I feel really sad about that. That's partly why I think I try so hard to bring my mum close, but her behaviors and judgments always hurt me. I wish I was stronger, but I admit lately that I don't have the energy to deal with her. Tonight she was getting physical after having too much wine, while yelling at me about my decision to take a break from work. Luckily though, my husband came home early. I ran and got behind him for cover. She kept trying to reach around him to grab me. She was not listening to his calm voice, so he had to raise his voice at her, and that's when she stopped suddenly, and just went to her room. When she acts like that, I feel so anxious. I was holding my partner's shirt in my fist so tightly, I didn't even realize my nails were digging into my skin. I then left her water, ibuprofen, and a small meal at her door. I just know for about a day she's going to give me the silent treatment and start refusing to eat. I'm so tired. Edit, not actual corn. What I meant is toys and stuff. OP, I just felt like I read through the journal of someone whose counselor was like, You know what? Just spill all of your traumas right out onto the paper so that you can release this from you. All that bad energy will flow from self to pen to paper, and you will find zen afterwards. If what you're looking for is permission, then I give you absolute permission to, I know you don't want to go no contact with her, but absolutely low contact, OP. My minimal brainstorming with the 2 brain cells I have left tells me that if she's going to come visit you guys in America, she needs to stay in a hotel and not hang out with you guys at the house. That is your fortress, that is your safe space. Make her stay somewhere else, and when it becomes too much for you, you disconnect from her. There's clearly some huge issues with boundary setting and boundary keeping here, because she knows that she can bully you because she's conditioned you as such. I, in a perfect world, would hope that you go no contact with her and only speak to her through your dad, but I know that's not always possible. In the comments, Joey Mummy 2015 says, "What the hell did I just read? Your mum is abusive AF, and you need to go 100% no contact. That's what we all did with my narcissistic grandmother, and it was the best decision ever. Send her home. She's snooping through your things, crossing boundaries you have clearly placed, yelling at you. She has long overstayed her welcome. It is your house. Send her home." OP replies, "My husband did tell her since she got physically abusive that night, if there is even one more incident, he will buy her a plane ticket and send her home early. I just hate that she sours and it will impact our holiday time as a family later this year." I feel bad for my dad too. He needs a break from her. That's why I'm putting up with her. I will try to sit down and tell her that she cannot get physical with me, even though she will claim she was drunk and doesn't remember. And now onto the update, titled, "Would I be the asshole for sending my mother back to Japan earlier than anticipated due to her behavior?" I am unfortunately back here on this website because I'm at a loss for how to wrap my head around a new situation, which honestly feels like a retaliation or some kind of attempt at asserting control. My husband is currently away for work, leaving just my mother and I in our new house. My mother is visiting from Japan as we recently got married. She's been staying with us. The plan was for us to travel back to Japan together in November. Since she arrived, my mother has been a lot, to say the least. She's already received a final warning from my husband. My husband told her that if her behavior towards me persists, he will have no problem buying her a new plane ticket and sending her home early by herself. Specific to this scenario, she's been criticizing our home in the most unnecessary ways. We purchased our home brand new, turnkey. We've put a lot of work on top of that as well. My mum, however, takes great satisfaction in finding faults in minuscule details, which she claims is constructive. She has been obsessed with a guest room closet. It's a large walk-in closet, as this guest room is actually the main floor master. When we put her up in this room, I'd explained to my mother the reason there is shelving on only one side of this closet is because we explicitly requested this from the designer during the finishing. We wanted space to neatly store some seasonal items and sports gear. With this simple explanation, I thought the subject had been closed. Yesterday, I came home from a run wearing headphones. I went upstairs to my bathroom. I was about to start my shower, but shut the water off because I kept hearing this strange drilling sound below me. When it wouldn't stop, I wrapped a towel around myself and went downstairs, calling out for my mother. There was no response. I followed the sound and ran into 2 men standing around the small foyer/hall area that connects to that guest room. They stared back, half smiling, half dumbfounded. I was so shocked, I just froze. My mom appeared behind me, which gave me another scare. I almost screamed. She said something like, "OP, oh my, put some clothes on, stupid girl," in Japanese. I was speechless. Crimson, embarrassed. I got myself out of there. I finished my shower, got dressed, by which time the men had all left. I confronted my mother. Without asking me or my husband, who was conveniently away, she found these random men from online. They're probably not even certified or a real company, invited them into our home and had shelves put in. The shelves don't even match, by the way. I will now have to remove them and clean up the wall. I feel humiliated and disturbed at what I can only assume is a twisted power move. I have to pay for this service because my mother claims that she does not have the money, but also, it's your house. She gave access to our home to people from Facebook or something who would have cased the place after she so graciously told them that it's just the two of us women currently living here, but more often just me, as, in her words, my awful husband is frequently away. I've been having a hard time falling asleep at night because I'm worrying about getting robbed or worse. I live in a secluded area, on an acreage surrounded by woods, absolutely surrounded. I can't even see my neighbors. Since my husband had warned her to keep her behavior in check, I feel like it is absolutely fair to send her back to Japan early. But I'm also scared to send her because then I'll be alone. I don't have any siblings, but I have a cousin abroad who thinks that I'm being an asshole if I send my mum packing. She is a frail woman and never travels alone. She's also my mother, no matter how horrid she can be. My husband said he'll book her a first-class ticket with someone to collect her from the plane and escort her, that she will be comfortable. He wants me to stand my ground. He assures me that I'll be safe. He can monitor the home from our security system, briefed me on some scenarios, things like that. A part of me wants to keep her here so I won't be alone. She and I are currently not speaking to each other, which is her decision ironically. Update. I'm booking her flight right now. She is feigning an aura migraine, asking me to take her to the ER, which I am not doing. So now I'm being accused of letting her suffer. We have pain meds at home, and there is nothing the ER can do for aura migraine. I'm going to try to take her phone away because she will 100% call her own ambulance. Oh my god, I regret letting her back into my life so much. Thank you to everyone for your support. You have given me the push that I need to follow through and send her home. This is the first vertebrae I'm gaining in hopes of one day growing a spine. I'll probably explore my excessive guilt around this decision in therapy. In the meantime, I'll try to keep reminding myself that I've done the right thing. And in the comments, her clarification, the user deleted their comments that OP is replying to, but OP says, I also get migraines with aura and know the signs and symptoms to assess if she needs emergency medical. Otherwise, she has everything she needs as far as medications and relief. It's not a control thing on my part. I just don't want her to purely, out of spite toward me, abuse a valuable resource like an ambulance that could be assisting someone who needs the service. They said something again, which they deleted, and OP replies, this is true. I understand what you're saying, but it's not that black and white in this particular scenario. I would never withhold medical care from my mum. However, she was not having an actual aura migraine. I was not clear in how I wrote it. I have reread it and see how it could be misinterpreted. However, it was more like a statement she suddenly made when I brought up the flight home. You're giving me aura migraine. Take me to the hospital. I can't listen to this. That sort of response. I told her no, we will follow her treatment plan first, which she has specifically for her migraines. She also had none of the signs and symptoms we have both been taught to recognize, which would warrant emergency medical. Changes to speech is one example. She declined other symptoms too when I asked. She declined her migraine medication as well. She poured herself a glass of wine 5 minutes later, flipped on the TV at a loud volume, and chatted with a friend on the phone in her room. I did not end up taking her phone as she locked me out of her room. My mum has called the police and ambulance back home under false pretenses many times. While I totally understand where you're coming from, in some cases, intervention is necessary too, within reason, and this felt reasonable to me. Update. My mum's flight was at 2 a.m., direct with no stops. I packed her belongings the night before while she was having her migraine, aka sipping wine and gossiping on the phone. I placed her suitcase in my vehicle. I informed her of my decision in the morning. Leading up to it, I discussed her behavior since the wedding, listing all of the incidents and her lack of remorse or willingness to respect us and our home. I reminded her of the warning my husband had given her only a few days ago, and that as a result of her actions, I will be following through with his warning in his absence. She will be going home. She smiled the whole time while I was talking. I asked her, "Mum, do you understand?" She said that she understands that I am basically a weakling and coward who is blindly carrying out my husband's bidding. She also made a point to be extra cruel by describing my husband as having dirty blood and a few other slurs that I won't get into due to the second-hand embarrassment and shame I feel about it. My partner is mixed race. She has specifically strong anti-Korean sentiment. It is so stupid. I clarified that this decision is mine. My husband is not here. She gave a rude laugh. I explained her flight information. "We'll see," she said. I don't think it hit her that this was really happening until later that evening when I started to pack up the remaining few things, like her essentials and carry-on stuff. She tried to fight with me to undo the packing. She slapped me many times, but I continued, literally while she was slapping me, dragged the stuff to the vehicle while the verbal and physical barrage went on. I have a few little scratches from the swipes of her nails. One of them is on my face. She then tried to pull my hair. I have really long hair as I was going up the stairs. I could have fallen backwards, but she didn't get a good grasp. I shouted at her, "If she doesn't stop, I will call the police. I don't care anymore. I will embarrass her by slandering her in my personal life any chance I get." I threatened to discuss her in articles. I've been published here and there for my art, like little spotlight interviews. I dialed 911 on my phone and showed her. She called me an insufferable B, and also threw in SLUT, because somehow that's fitting. But she left me alone after that. I had a friend of my husband come and escort us to the airport. He's a stone-faced ex-SEAL, but totally nice guy. Just my mum didn't know that, lol. He also drove me back. It helped a lot. When he showed up, things calmed down significantly because my mum behaved in a stranger's presence, smiling curtly and everything. I tried to give her a hug at the airport, and she walked away making a vague threat about how her death will be on my conscience. We never hug unless it's for photos anyway, so maybe it was too much. So, she's gone. I have an extremely bad headache today from all the stress and tension that had built up. I am not going to bother my husband. Clarification, I have kept him informed, just not detailed, like my mum hurting me. I will tell him everything in person, because of his temperament and because he has a high-stress job, so just staying strong, going to do self-care and self-soothing stuff today. And try not to feel sick or guilty. It's not even really guilt, it's hard to explain the feelings, I just feel awful. Thanks everyone, from the bottom of my heart. I truly would not have been able to do this without the support and encouragement that I received from you. I hope that I can, without losing my innate compassion and warmth, continue to grow, mature, heal, and do the right things like standing up for myself, aka not being an asshole to myself. I hope this is a good update. My niece, 4 female, ruined my, 19 male, anniversary present for my girlfriend, 19 female. My girlfriend and I are celebrating our 5-year anniversary this Halloween. Every anniversary, she always gives me these impressive figurines that she makes, and it always blows me away. I always feel like my presents are always way lamer than her presents, so I decided to make her something this year. With guidance from her friends, I printed pictures of us onto a larger canvas and used white tape to make cute frames. I know it may not seem that impressive, but I'm not artistic. But she is, and I wanted to make her something that I thought that she would like. I had the gift hidden in a closet. The problem came whenever I looked after my sister's kids. I took them down to the basement to do some painting. My niece walked away from the table to what I thought was the drawer with the art supplies, so I didn't think much of it. So while I was focused on my nephew and gushing over how he and his sister are the best artists in the world, my niece went into the closet where my girlfriend's present was and with her paintbrush painted all over it. The second I heard the door, my head shot up. When I saw my niece over the canvas smudging paint all over it, my heart sank. I took my niece out of the closet, shoved the canvas back into the closet, slammed the door shut, and carried her back to the table. I felt dead inside. My niece and nephew kept asking me if I was okay. I reassured them I was fine and ended up bringing them ice cream to convince them that everything was okay. When my girlfriend came home, after I gave my nephew a bath, I asked her if she could give my niece a bath. She laughed at how she was covered in paint, and I joked that she went to town painting. While I was waiting for my girlfriend and niece to finish, I watched cartoons with my nephew and started thinking about what I was going to do, because nothing I could get her could possibly be good enough for our 5-year, and what I was going to give her was completely ruined. She deserves an amazing present, and I don't know what to do. I'm screwed. In the comments, Uncomfortable Bike 975 says, "Give it to her as is and explain it. After today's bath, she will know exactly what happened. She will laugh and say you need better hiding spots." OP replies, "Give it on the day or before? Whenever the kids aren't around." So, what have you learned, OP? And OP replies, 1. If a kid wanders, follow them, even if it's in the same room. 2. My niece really loves to paint. And 3. Hide the canvas somewhere else, maybe in my girlfriend's brother's closet. So it wasn't a total loss, and Lesson 1 and Lesson 2 have a corollary rule: follow wandering kids twice as hard if there is paint around or power tools. OP says, "Luckily we don't have power tools in our house." That's a good point. Her wandering could have brought her somewhere that wasn't a nearly empty closet. Good thing it was just a present harmed and not her. Despite what she did saddened me, she's just a kid and I still love her. I think a cool consolation might be to do a painting class or date type of thing with her. She's artistic and you aren't, but it might be really cool to her that you put yourself out of your comfort zone if you still want to do something for her after showing and explaining what happened. That's rough, but you did good, honestly. You put good thought in and consulted her friends too, so you've definitely shown that you care. OP replies, "Consulting her friends was not only because they know and care about my girlfriend, but they are also artists. So I thought that her artist friends would give great advice for what a non-artist can make, but still turn out really good, and they did." Update. I told my girlfriend, as the few of y'all suggested. Later that day, when my sister picked up her kids, I took her to the basement and to the closet to show her what my niece did. I explained that I've always felt like she does like the presents that I give her, and I feel bad because she puts so much effort into my presents. I explained to her what exactly I was trying to make. Luckily, my niece didn't cover the entirety of the canvas, and my girlfriend saw bits of the canvas. In particular, a picture her friend took of us in a cafeteria in high school, with her head on my shoulder. She gushed about how sweet it was and suggested that we could turn this into an anniversary project. We could make another canvas and maybe include some of her pictures. I told her how much of a great idea it was, and she was jumping with joy and excitement. Maybe I'll give y'all another update when my anniversary comes around, but for now, I'm excited for our little project. Let's be honest here, it's gonna turn out to be better with her help. In the comments, Xochi Blossom says, "Okay, that's just adorable. Such a cute bunch. A heartwarming story was much needed after some of the posts here today." I agree. This just goes to show that sometimes good things can come from challenging situations. After reading so many posts here, I expected it to be about him getting angry with his niece, but even that was a pleasant surprise. Sharon Stone says, "Sweet kid, but someone needs to tell him he's allowed to tell a kid that he's sad. Like, 'Oh no, that was my painting, and now I'm a little sad that it has your art on it too. But I'm not mad, and we can paint more on your very own paper. If you practice, we can do some art projects together on real artist canvases.'" Edit to add, I don't think he did anything wrong. I just worry when people's first instinct is to minimize their own emotions in an effort to mitigate someone else's. It kind of sounds like his ears were too much burning and his mind racing about what he was going to do. I think it's normal to maintain status quo while you figure things out. I mean, he probably wasn't even sure how appropriate his feelings were right away, and what an appropriate reaction would be if it had just been the wall being painted. So I think at the time he did great. And yeah, at some point that would be ideal. This next post I have already covered previously, but there is a final update to this one. Posted by user CapableElephant6355, titled, 2 tampons may mean my marriage is over. I, 29 female, have been with my husband, 30 male, for 7 years, married for 4. I've never had reason to suspect that he was unfaithful to me or even remotely dissatisfied with our marriage. He likes to joke that we're still living the honeymoon phase, nearly 5 years and 2 kids in. I wouldn't have questioned that, or him, were it not for a surprise that I found in his car last month. When buckling our daughter into her car seat, I noticed something slotted between the cushions. I pulled it out and saw that it was a tampon. This wouldn't have been so unusual had I not had an IUD that has stopped my period for the past year, and I didn't even recognize the wrapper style. I brought it to my husband's attention, and he didn't seem to understand what it was, let alone why I was holding it, until I told him where I'd found it and why I was almost certain that it wasn't mine. He shrugged and said that it probably belonged to his coworker, Fiona. It's not uncommon for my husband to carpool to lunch with his coworkers, and we're both fairly close to Fiona and her husband, so I figured that it was entirely possible the tampon had slipped out of her purse whenever he had driven with them or offered her a ride. No big deal. I put it out of my mind until we had dinner with Fiona and her husband a couple of weeks later. I had sincerely wanted to believe my husband, I just couldn't get over the way that it had been tucked in the seat, and how my husband had seemed not to have any regard for it whatsoever. Maybe playing dumb, I don't know. I did something that I now feel kinda crazy for doing. I faked an emergency and asked Fiona if she had any tampons while we were out together. She handed me one almost identical to the tampon that I'd found in our back seat, and I breathed a sigh of relief. So the tampon there was probably the same tampon here, and in all likelihood, there was an innocent explanation as to why it had been left in the back seat in the first place. I thought I'd seen the last of the out-of-place feminine hygiene products until I found another tampon this morning, this time in my sock drawer. I feel physically ill at the thought of my husband having an affair, and even more nauseated at the thought that the woman might have left tampons out for me to find. If it was my husband's coworker, why would she give herself away by offering me one the other night? In any other situation, I would want to talk to my husband about this, but I feel too sick and embarrassed to approach him with what I've found. What should I do? In the comments, I've had a period 30 years and never put a tampon in a sock drawer. Trust your guts and get cameras. And OP replies, neither have I. I have considered so many explanations for the tampons that wouldn't implicate my husband, but none of them make sense really. I'm terrified to set up a camera if it means confirming what I suspect right now. Has Fiona been over to the house and had time to plant the tampon? OP replies, she's been to our house many times and vice versa. To my knowledge, she wasn't over any time in the past week, so if she planted that second tampon, she had to have found a window of time when I wasn't home. Anytime she and her husband visit, we all stay downstairs, and you'd have to go really far out of your way to make it to our bedroom, i.e., around our dogs, over the safety gate, past the other bedrooms. Not saying it's impossible, but definitely tricky to do on a quick bathroom break, I would guess. How old are your kids? Could they have found a tampon and put it in a random place? And OP replies, 2 and almost 4. Both have a mischievous streak, so I didn't want to rule out the possibility of one of them moving stuff around, but I can't imagine how they'd get their hands on 1, possibly 2 random tampons that I never bought. Update. Contemplating every possible source of 2 tampons has been my personal hell for the past few weeks, but I wanted to share an update. Shortly after posting on here, I told my sister what happened. The tampon in the back seat and the sock drawer, my husband's cluelessness, the tampon from Fiona, and all the things that I suspected but didn't want to believe. We compared tampons, save for the back seat one that I'd already discarded, and they were a match, just in different absorbencies. I hadn't left either in a place where my husband or daughters would have found them and moved them around. My daughters didn't know what they were or where they had come from. My sister was convinced that it was Fiona either screwing my husband, screwing with me, or both. Direct confrontation of either party still seemed like a bad idea, so she suggested inviting Fiona and her husband over for our Labor Day barbecue. Unfortunately, they already had plans. My sister and I agreed that it was too soon for cameras without any other evidence, so it was just a waiting game from there. Watching my husband for any changed behavior, there was none, our house for any misplaced or foreign items, there were none, and even the girls for any new friends they might have met. My sister's husband was adamant on this last point, and partly why he was inclined to believe that the tampons were harmless. If anything had been happening in or around our home, he said it would be nearly impossible to keep it from me and the girls, since my husband was the one taking them to and from daycare and most other activities during the week. I felt a good bit of consolation in that. It wasn't until my younger daughter, 2-year-old, came down with something last week that I felt any differently. I wanted to be the one home taking care of her, but my husband insisted that I stay at work while he stayed home with her. I was okay with that. My sister and her husband figured that it was a good sign that he would take the time off at a moment's notice, and at that point, we were already beginning to put the tampon fiasco behind us. By the 3rd or 4th day, I was just happy to see a near-healthy child and a husband who was helping see her through it. Toward the end of the week, though, I came home to something strange. The toddler that I'd left that morning in an old PJ set was now dressed in a onesie that I'd never seen before, with a tiny clip in her hair. I can't say that I have the sharpest memory, but I have a pretty good sense of what my kids wear on a day-to-day basis, and particularly what kinds of clothes they wear. I'd sworn off the full-length sleep suits with snaps across the front long before we'd ever had our second. The long snaps are just a pain in the ass, and a no-go for efficient diaper changes in my opinion. It's just not something that I would dress her in, and my husband knows as much. He doesn't plan for or buy the girls' clothes, and he certainly doesn't accessorize them. So I was bewildered, and kind of floored at the thought of someone around our sick child without my knowledge. I didn't think twice, and I went straight to my husband to ask if anyone had been over to see him or the girls. He seemed confused, like before, and asked me why I would think that. It had just been him and the kids all day. I asked him again if someone had so much as stopped by to say hello, and he denied it. He told me to calm down. I might have lashed out and come forward with the accusations right then and there, but our older daughter was in the room, and she sensed that something was up. In a calmer voice, I asked him a 3rd time if anyone had been around our children, and my husband swore that the girls hadn't been around anyone but him. He also denied buying new clothes or doing anyone's hair. With our daughter in the room and my emotions all over the place, I just decided to leave it. I couldn't make sense of it then, and it hardly seems clearer now, after I've driven myself half crazy with explanations that aren't adding up. In the comments, to answer a couple of questions, my 2-year-old can only string together a couple of words at a time, and when I ask her about her time with daddy or her clothes/bow, she answers based on the cues I give her, e.g., who gave you that pretty bow? And she repeats, pretty bow, back to me, or mama, daddy, over and over. My oldest daughter, almost 4, was at daycare that morning, and she can't recall anything different from that day. Doesn't remember the PJ change or the hair clip, so my guess is she was changed sometime that morning, but I'm not totally sure. I have a 45-minute commute to work, so stopping by for lunch isn't really feasible. My sister has been kind enough to leave work and drive past a few times here and there, and she hasn't seen anything out of the ordinary. We have a Ring camera at the front door, and I've got the app on my phone with notifications on. Nothing there yet. If anyone has recommendations for more discreet surveillance, I'd be open to it. I'm just the least tech-savvy person, and I worry that another camera will be easy to detect. Edit, and yes, we get our carbon monoxide detectors tested regularly. Someone asks OP, is it possible one of the hair clips came from daycare? And OP says, I could see the hair clip being a possibility, but less likely on the onesie. My younger daughter hadn't been to daycare in days, and if either of them had returned with something like that before, I would have noticed, especially since it was the kind of onesie that I hate with a passion. People comment that they can't wait to find out the ending to this saga, and OP says, my money's on the Hollywood horror ending. Hopefully dreamed up the dogs too, so I can finally stop picking up their imaginary shits and whatnot. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the final update. After nearly losing my mind over a hair clip and a onesie, I realized I wasn't getting anywhere with the accusations and half-baked guesswork. I'd gotten so absorbed in the paranoia and misery of my situation that I wasn't sleeping, eating, or caring for my kids the way that I should have been, and I wasn't getting any answers. So I decided to pull the trigger on the hidden cameras and have them shipped to my sister's house, with my brother-in-law agreeing to help with the install and setup over at mine. Before the cameras were ever delivered though, I got my long-awaited confirmation last week. A Ring notification had alerted me to motion at the front door while I was at work. Half expecting to see a delivery person, pet, or lawn care salesman for the 15th time, you can imagine my surprise when I saw a clip of a young woman leading my daughter into the house hand in hand, with my husband and other daughter close behind them. The girls were supposed to be in daycare and my husband at work. The woman, as far as I knew, was living 2 states away with a court order keeping her there. I immediately called my husband to ask him what the F this woman was doing in our house. He didn't answer, so I texted it to him. Even in his stupidity, he probably realized he had messed up by going through the front door, knew I'd gotten the Ring notification, and wanted to delay the inevitable. By the 5th or 6th subsequent call though, he did pick up. The woman on the camera was my husband's sister. As I would come to find out later, she was the likely source of both tampons, the onesie, and also the bow. She is also a registered sex offender and a recovering addict who spent the better part of her adolescence and young adulthood coercing the silence of another one of my husband's family members after she had taken advantage of them. I hadn't seen or heard from her in years, and from the way my husband talked about her, I didn't expect that I ever would. But here she was, in our house, with our children. Suffice to say, I was livid. It wasn't an affair at all, and still, somehow, infinitely more disgusting knowing who it was and why all of this had been happening. Apparently my sister-in-law, fresh off another stint in rehab, had wanted to reconnect and make amends with people that she had hurt, and my husband was high on that list. My husband didn't want me to know, or worse, try and keep her family, our children, away from her, so they'd been meeting in secret, often at our house when I was at work. They would enter through the garage in my husband's car, so the Ring camera at the front door wouldn't tip me off. She spent the night on a weekend that I'd been on a business trip and slept in our bed. She babysat our girls on a night that my husband told me he had dropped them off at his parents'. She bought the girls clothes and dressed my youngest in the onesie and bow that my husband had promised on his life I had dressed her in myself. My husband swore this was all in my head. The tampons, the onesie, the bow, and all the rest. He was perfectly content to watch me agonize for weeks over a woman he insisted didn't exist, shrugging off each progressively more unsettling discovery like it was news to him and telling me that I was being irrational. He insinuated that I was experiencing postpartum depression 2 years after I'd given birth. 4 years after I'd told him that one of my biggest fears for motherhood was to suffer PPD like my mother had with me, to not be fully present for our babies, and be left with a world of guilt and regret as they grew older. He told me that I wasn't sleeping enough, that I missed the girls too much, that I needed to take a step back and to reevaluate the state of my mental health. I gave him the benefit of the doubt because he was my husband, and because no other version of events made sense. Now, after a month of this mind F, I have nothing to show for my trust but this pathetic situation and a lot of anger. And damn OP, you deserve to have that anger because, Jesus Christ, what was he thinking? Absolute deal breaker in a relationship like this, leaving her with your kids, given her history. No, absolutely not. That to me is grounds in a divorce to have his custody taken away. He has willfully and discreetly put your kids' safety in jeopardy by putting them with a sex offender. Absolutely not. Grounds for divorce and grounds for him not seeing these kids without supervised custody. Disgusting. In the comments, Rogue Daughter-in-Law says, "Call the cops. If she's a registered sex offender, the likelihood that she is on an order preventing her from being alone with persons under 16 is very high. He left her alone with your children. He left your children alone with a sexual predator. This is not something that you can, should, or will be able to ignore. It will fester. He has broken your trust. It's all over except for the crying. Be smart and strategic here. Call the cops and then call a divorce lawyer. She's not even allowed in this state. The cops will arrest her for just being there. OP says, already on it. Believe me, we're going scorched earth on this mother effer. I hope the dad isn't trying to get custody. OP's lawyer is going to have a field day with the fact he brought a sex offender in contact with his children. Not even just bringing the sex offender around the kids, leaving these kids alone with a sex offender. There are no words for how horrifying this is. Every decent parent's worst nightmare. I'm not a parent, and I seriously want to cry thinking about it. Okay, this is a good example of actual gaslighting. I'm so careful not to overuse that word, but this seemed pretty textbook. He genuinely was trying to convince her that she was misremembering things. Yep, a rare instance of literal gaslighting. I went through literal gaslighting. I thought I was losing it until the dumb effer did it in front of someone else, and they pointed out that my memories were accurate. That moment shattered my insanity, and I finally broke it off. It makes you paranoid for years, to the point where anytime someone tried to correct me or say that I misremembered something, I would start panicking. F gaslighters. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. I am very emotional and angry over this one, but I have a feeling that it's not over, but I don't blame OP if there is not a final update, because the writing seems to be on the wall for this one. Screw that husband. He deserves the worst. Anyway, guys, have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.